We'll have live.
We are going to break down the vote for Speaker of the House. Again, 4 days in a row. Can't believe it. And joining me today is former Representative Erik Mortensen. How you do, buddy? So
Pretty
to see you
good,
again.
pretty good. Good to see you.
It's been hard getting a meeting or anything with you. Yeah, like, are you taking a lot of time off? Backpacking?
I'm just in
and
the real
camping?
job. I'm going ice fishing today.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is historic. So let's talk about the important stuff before you break off and go into the boundary waters and get lost.
Yeah, we're on the clock now. We got about an hour and 29 minutes.
Bridget, good to see you back from Kansas. People thought, oh, no, we lost Bridget. What happened to her?
You did for a month, but it's good to be back.
Well, you know, I told you, like, Tuesday, I'm like, you see the weather that's coming? Like, I don't know if you want to drive through this thing. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, we don't have Bridget anymore.
Well, I had no idea. I didn't even think about the weather. I should have, because coming down, I had the same problem.
Gotcha.
But
Well, Bridget will be reading your comments. Join us. Tell us where you're watching from. Dawson's going to be running the dials in the room. And with that said, Dawson, let's go live to the U.S. House floor. We're on ballot number 12. They were probably doing their prayer right now. This is where the Democrats pretend like they actually believe in God. But you got to at least like 50% of them don't, right? Do you know that the DNC, that guy seems like he does. Is he holding a Bible? Did you know that the DNC actually had a motion to try to remove, what was it, like God or something from their platform?
No, I had no idea.
Yeah, this was like, I think this was 2016. God, I remember, I wish I remembered exactly what it was. It was something to basically remove Christianity from the DNC platform. And the establishment killed it because there was like momentum behind it. And they're like, oh, this is bad. This would look really bad to the evangelicals that we really need, you know, to like kind of go into the Republican ranks or the Republican voters.
Well, I tell you, in the House, in the State House, every time we would do the Pledge of Allegiance, right, before every floor session, I was always just watching the Democrats' lips to see if they would actually say, you know, under God, or if they would just like lip sync it or something. And I can't say I ever saw them like exclude it, but
Yeah, but because they were wearing masks. How would you see it?
that's very true.
I don't know.
That's very true.
When were you in the House where they didn't actually wear a mask? Mort was in the House in 2021 and 2022. And so you either weren't on the House floor because you didn't want to deal with the BS and the mask. They said they wouldn't call on you. And then finally, 2022, you're like, screw it, I'm going to the House floor. I'm just not going to wear a mask.
Yeah.
And everyone else was wearing a mask, Republicans included. What, it took like a week before one other brave soul didn't wear a mask? Let's go to the audio here.
Madam Clerk, a point of order. There's not a quorum present.
Every day.
The gentlewoman makes a point of order that a
Okay.
quorum is not present.
Quorum's not
Chair
present,
will
so they're going to start counting. People are going to, I mean, this is going to be about 10 minutes where people are going to signify that they are there. Day 2, we were a little concerned that the McCarthy faction made a deal with the Democrats. And you probably could see this happening, right? Because they make deals all the time with Democrats. But that they were actually going to have a faction of Democrats not show up, which would mean that the denominator, or the amount of people voting, which you need a majority of.
Yep.
So when they say you need 218 votes, it's because there's 434 members of Congress right now. There's one Democrat that died, so they have to have a special election. Otherwise, it'd be 435. So if a bunch of Democrats didn't show up, or if a bunch of Democrats just voted present, McCarthy could then become the Speaker of the House. If a bunch of Republicans did that, Hakeem Jeffries would be the Speaker of the House because he's actually leading in votes. So there's absolutely zero. I mean, there's actually one Republican, Victoria Spartz, who's voted present. I don't know why she's voting present, but that's just one person, so it's not going to make a huge difference in the end. But Republicans can't play that game because Hakeem Jeffries is closer percentage-wise to getting that vote.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, those are two scenarios. And I watched Laura Ingraham last night, and Fox News has been so disappointing on the vast majority of their coverage on this whole situation, except for Tucker Carlson. He was like one guy who sees this as a win. Like, this is a good thing. Disrupting the establishment's always a great thing. But Laura Ingraham last night was like, well, there's a scenario here where moderate Republicans strike a deal with the Democrats So this, what's his name? Hakeem something?
Hakeem Jeffries.
Hakeem Jeffries. So he would end up being speaker. And it's like baloney. That will never, ever happen. There's a far better chance that some Democrats would strike a deal with McCarthy's faction to make sure McCarthy locks it up. But like, there's just no way no way is it ever going to happen where some Republicans just suddenly start voting for Hakeem Jeffries. Like, it'd be political suicide, and that's all these guys care about is getting reelected. So
well, it's funny you say it'd be political suicide. Why don't you pull up actionforliberty.com real quick, Dawson? Speaking of which, could a Republican vote for a Democrat in leadership position in the legislature? Well, there's some precedent here.
Yeah, but it's a little different.
So 2 Republicans in Minnesota voted for the Democrat to run the Senate, to be the president of the Senate, and that is Jim Abler. And I say Republican in quotations, even though they called him a far-right extremist when they tried taking him out.
Yeah.
Jim Abler is as close to a Democrat as possible. And Senator Jeremy Miller voted for Bobby Joe Champion, a Minneapolis Democrat, for president of the Senate. Now go back to the top there. Jeremy Miller, the guy on the right, that was the majority leader of the Republican caucus last year. And he's voting for a Democrat to preside over the Senate. Now, granted, the Republicans aren't going to win the vote. It's 34-33. The Democrats are aligned. But we don't vote for the Democrat. You're basically saying that's the guy you think should be presiding over the Senate. And that's the speaker role. It's funny. The Senate's goofy. The equivalent to the Speaker of the House in the Senate is actually the president. That's who presides over it. The majority leaders are the ones who are like the coveted position. And it's a little flipped in the House. I don't know why that is historically, but be a good one to research.
Yeah, that's so ridiculous that those guys would do that. And clearly, like, Abler squeaked by. Like, I think he only won by 100 votes or something like that. It was a
Very
small margin. So it's just idiotic. And clearly they think that that's their way of sort of appeasing some moderate Democrats and insulating them from being attacked in the next election cycle, where it's like baloney.
No one cares.
They will absolutely call Jim Abler the racist, the bigot, all the stuff that they always would. But of course, the scenario here is a little different because the Democrats have the state Senate. Like, they didn't have to vote that way. And that's why I think it's political suicide for anybody in the U.S. House to vote for Hakeem Jeffries, because the Republicans have the majority. I still think at the end of this thing, McCarthy ends up getting elected somehow because I don't see any other traction with anybody else. So I think that's what happens. I think he has to make a ton more concessions, it sounds like, for it to happen. But.
Well, that's a great point. So this is why this plays so great. And as you said, Fox News is so wrong on it. They really are wrong. Tucker's doing great. You know, I don't even have a way to watch Fox News. Luckily, there's some guy that pops it up on YouTube every night, and I find the stream. But it's like, because I don't have cable. I'm a cable cutter, right? So I don't know how else to get Fox News unless you get like Sling or something. So, but Tucker's worth watching. He's been right on this. Most Fox News is wrong. Their talking points are so utterly ridiculous. You know, the thing that's fascinating to me is why this play is so good. You either get rid of a rhino like McCarthy, right? You got to admit McCarthy's not good. Because if he's good, then why would he have to concede anything to the 20 conservatives, right? Like, obviously, if that's standing in the way of him getting elected, it means he's not going to be a great speaker for the people. So the 20 conservatives are demanding some things. So when you say he might be elected the speaker, it's because he's conceded to these conservatives. So isn't this a great play by the 20 conservatives? They're conceding things like you got to, do this rule. You got to put people on the rules committee that are conservatives. You got to allow a vote to vacate the speaker. No more omnibus, multi-subject bills. No more debt ceiling increases. Isn't that great? That's what's going to come if he gets the votes. Or the other option is McCarthy can't get 218, and they're forced to find someone that's actually got the agenda that's right for America. To me, it's just like an obviously good play.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's less likely that they go out and just find somebody else. Like I saw Chip Roy and what's the other guy? Good?
Let's tune in real quick here. Sorry about that.
A quorum is present.
I didn't get the number, but it doesn't really matter if we got the number or not.
The question recurs upon the election of a speaker. The tellers will please come forward and take their seats.
Where the heck were the tellers? Why weren't they in their seats? So the question is, will they do a 12th vote here? It doesn't look like a deal's been struck. I was reading Matt Gaetz, Chip Roy's, speaking of Chip Roy, their Twitter accounts, and it doesn't sound like there's a deal. So a 12th vote really is going to be moot. There hasn't been really any movement on votes, real movement on votes since ballot 4. And the only dynamic in ballot 4 was Sparks started voting present. Since then, it's just been the same 20 voting other than McCarthy. Now that's gone to Trump, and it's gone to Donalds, and it's gone to who's the other guy? Kevin Hearn. But it's not like there's been any real movement. So the other option is they actually adjourn. They adjourn to another time. And this is the other thing I was thinking about, Morton. You could weigh in on this. These are U.S. congressmen. They don't want to be here this weekend. They want to go back to their district, So they want to go back home. So it's probably going to be unpopular to say we want to adjourn to 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. tonight or adjourn till Saturday, right?
Oh, yeah. I wouldn't be surprised at all if they just adjourned till, Monday or Tuesday morning. Especially if they know they don't have the votes. Matt Gaetz was on Fox News last night on Laura Ingraham, actually. And, of course, she's berating him and saying how selfish this is. And she's so wrong on it. But he ended up saying he would never vote for McCarthy. And it makes you wonder if those 5 that are out there. Here
we go. Yeah, I was just going to say, it's pretty obvious when a guy like this comes up, it's going to be a nomination. It's always funny to watch these guys so energetic and happy and cheery right on the first time, and they start losing that face as the ballots go on.
The gentleman is recognized.
And while I rise to that end,
well,
I
one
think
thing people
it's
need to realize as
critically
they're watching this
important
stuff,
to
and
note that
you talk about somebody voting
actually not
present,
about
and
Kevin McCarthy.
what if they get the
Kevin
right
has
number
been
of
man, he's a man of
Republicans
God,
to
he's a
vote
patriot,
present,
he's a
or
leader who
Democrats
has
for that matter.
led this conference to our current majority over the
Or if they
last
do
4
too
years.
many Republicans
Those
start voting
things are
present, then does that ends up
unassailable.
with McCarthy getting
This
the
isn't about
position?
him.
But this stuff is so highly scripted. Like, everybody knows going to the floor how everybody's going to end up voting. There's no
This isn't
way
about Kevin
that somehow
McCarthy.
accidentally
I put
you
no
get all these
single
Republicans
human
just voting
being on a
present. I mean,
pedestal,
this is
certainly not
Okay,
the
so-
Son of
super
God,
scripted.
and
So I agree with
not
that.
before the gift
Why,
he has
if
blessed
you don't
us
have the
with,
votes, are they
and
doing this then?
experiment that we call the United States
are
of
they
America.
doing what?
So it's always scripted. You're right
Oh,
on the
even having the vote.
Yeah,
at all?
so if they know, why are they even bothering doing this?
Well, I think both sides feel like they're dragging the other side over the political coals. I mean, McCarthy's faction, they know they've got Fox News on their side, largely all Fox News on their side. Traditional conservative media is on McCarthy's side, so I think they're kind of, it's kind of a blood battle taking place, and it's kind of staring each other down.
Yeah, and I came to that conclusion earlier in the week, and now I'm like, I feel like the momentum is going to shift here. So I was listening to Mike Gallagher on the radio yesterday on 1280 The Patriot. I hadn't listened to him in like 20 years. I used to listen to him when I drove to ROTC in the morning. I went to U of M ROTC and would drive from River Falls. That's where I went to school. And so I got used to listening to Mike Gallagher. I haven't listened to him in 20 years. I don't listen to a lot of talk radio. And he's just like, I got to admit, a lot of the guys, all of my colleagues in radio, conservative pundits, are getting this wrong. He had a poll up. 88% of his listeners said they support the 20. Tucker, by far, I would imagine the most influential guy at Fox News. You would imagine so. He's got the prime slot.
Yeah.
I know Hannity's the dinosaur had been there for years. Hannity's way off on this one. You get a lot of pundits like Charlie Kirk. You listen to him a lot, Bridget, right? He's been right on this issue. I think there are. Well, we just did an email last night. It seemed like it landed very well with our people. So I feel like it's really turning. Now, look, Matt Gaetz is standing next to McCarthy, meaning he's gonna be nominating someone. So first, they're gonna go to Hakeem Jeffries. I'm sorry, not Hakeem Jeffries. Probably Aguilar, and then he'll nominate Hakeem Jeffries. I have no idea what he just said.
Our police also serve with that pure and selfless intent. They do it every day, and we should thank them every day.
Oh, pro cops.
Today, the
That's what it
Chinese
was about.
Communist Party will orchestrate the theft of another $1 billion of intellectual property from American companies. And the Chinese
Senator
Communist
Nathan
Party is
Wiesenberg
still today
texted
not
me
being held accountable
with an image
for the
of
deaths
a
millions of
Democrat
people around this
texting
planet,
during the
deaths
prayer.
as a result of genocide within their borders, and deaths as a
Wiesenberg
result
chimed
of
in too with a
COVID
kind of
outside
off-topic
them.
comment But
We are today
he said, breaking down Alpha News, Minnesota Democrats are forming the Inclusive Democracy Caucus. I don't know if he was joking, if that's for real.
I bet that is real.
Yeah, it probably is.
It doesn't shock any one of us, does it?
I mean, no, it doesn't at all.
Oh, that's so funny.
Ones in Afghanistan over a year ago. And today,
I'm going to
speaking
take
of
these
our
off because there's
military,
really nothing we're going to
today,
learn on this
roughly
one.
48
What will be interesting is once we get to it looks like Matt Gaetz is going to be nominating somebody. Is he going to go back and nominate Donald Trump for a third or second time? Because Trump's technically only been nominated once. He's had, I think, 3 votes. I can figure this out right away. Trump's received 3 votes. Right. He received a vote from Gaetz on the 7th and 8th ballot, and then again on the 11th ballot. But he hadn't been nominated officially, so the clerk actually had to say the Honorable Donald Trump. Then he actually was on the ticker on C-SPAN. So when they're doing the tallies, you had Trump actually up there. Now he only received 1 vote. Marjorie Taylor Greene apparently chooses Kevin McCarthy over him.
I don't understand that. Her and Thomas Massey. I mean, Massey's one of the most principled guys down there, and the fact that I think he's voted for McCarthy every time.
Every time.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess he doesn't think this is his battle and it's not important. I don't know how you set this one out, honestly. Like, all right, Erik Mortensen, you're a U.S. congressman. What's your move here?
Well, I'm voting for anybody other than McCarthy at this point.
Anybody?
I mean,
Like,
well, I shouldn't say anybody.
Like Dan Crenshaw?
an
Would you vote for Dan
anti-
Crenshaw?
No, I
He thinks
wouldn't
you're a
He's voting for
terrorist.
Jeffries.
Yeah, would you vote for Hakeem Jeffries? Anybody but McCarthy, huh?
No. But I'd be a part of this for sure. Like, I'd be wanting to block this. I think this is a super smart move. When Chip Roy the other night said, look, we want one of 2 things. Either these concessions to the rules so that they can further empower the body, or they want a leader they can actually trust. And I think that's the 2 scenarios that make a ton of sense to me. And that's why this is a win, because you get someone that is trustworthy, like a Jim Jordan. I like Jim Jordan. Or you get the rules to the point where you can, easily remove these people. And I know they've talked about term limits the last couple of days, which is kind of surprising to hear U.S. Congress talking about term limits, but that would be fantastic.
It would be great. I don't know how that gets enforced, though, because if it's a rule of the House, it's like you can't be a lobbyist after you leave, and like they break that all the time. And if people elect you, it's not like a rule of the House and the rules could get changed. So I don't know what the term limits even means.
I don't know either. If they're talking about
bring it to a vote, it's just going to die in the Senate. So what's the point?
Well, I don't know if it necessarily would die in the Senate. In a 50-50 Senate, and term limits is popular.
Well, isn't it?
It's
a 51-49 Senate, isn't it?
Okay, whatever. But like even Democrats, I think it's polls that like 70% of Democrats support term limits. So that's one of those issues I don't think is
let's put it this way.
necessarily
Biden's not signing in a law, and they don't have a 2/3 in either body.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised either if Biden signed it into law.
Joe Biden, the guy that's been in D.C. for 46 years?
Okay, that's
hello.
fair. That's fair. But, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if he did it, because I think that's what he knows people are demanding. Like Nathan Wiesenberg, you were just talking about him. That's what it's like a single issue he ran on up there. I think it's popular across the aisle.
Yeah, but see, I can already see the propaganda campaign against it. They're going to find the most loved senators, most loved representatives on both sides, and they'll be like, well, then you're going to get rid of the Mike Lees of the world. And then they'll go to the Democrat side, and they'll be like, you're going to get rid of the Maxine Waters of the world, And that's what they're going to do. And
yeah, well, there's always going to be defense in anything they do. But what I think is I kind of just look at this overall battle and watching these guys on TV. I mean, they're politicians, right? So you're like, do they really believe this? Do they actually care?
Right.
I bet there's a group of that 4 or 5, maybe 3 are legitimate. Like they really want this, and they're willing
Gaetz
to just
says
go to
he's
battle.
not ever voting for McCarthy.
Yeah.
So
I think there's a bunch of them that just see this as they're opportunistic and they want to hop on board and get a spot on CNN or MSNBC or something. And but one of the things, if I talk about kind of lessons I've learned. When I first ran 4 years ago, somebody was Ben Dorr at Minnesota Gun Rights. He's like, hey, don't trust anybody down there. And he said, until they politically bleed for you. And I was like, what does that even mean? I had no idea what he was talking about. And now, 4 years later, it didn't take this long, I've learned what that really means. And if you look at this scenario, and by politically bleed, I just mean someone who politically sacrifices their likelihood of getting reelected. And really, to kind of drill that further, who is severing?
Yeah.
Yeah, who has severed relationships with political class. And because it's people like Kevin McCarthy that have so much power to help people get reelected and find primary challengers. So to me, looking at this, who is politically bleeding? It's these 20 people.
Yeah.
They're the ones who are politically bleeding, and that's why I find what they're doing far more courageous and compelling than the folks just pushing the button for McCarthy.
Right. It's actually very interesting and noteworthy that McCarthy immediately left the floor after his nomination speech, meaning that maybe he's trying to get some negotiations going again. That's fascinating. Another thing that's been pointed out by Matt Gaetz is, and speaking of scripted, you might not know this. So apparently Kevin McCarthy is squatting in the Speaker's office. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
Yeah,
know that.
Matt Gaetz said on the first day, Tuesday, he's like, why is Kevin McCarthy sent a letter to the architect of the U.S. Capitol going, why is Kevin McCarthy in the Speaker's office, and at what point does he become a squatter? He's actually losing. He's not the leader on votes right now for Speaker of the House.
Yeah.
It's a valid question. Like, why is he in the Speaker's office? He's not the Speaker.
Yeah, I had no idea.
I guess the majority party just really rules out there. It's crazy, though. So I want to go back to your point about why this is such a good play. Really, what I think is going to – so McCarthy's got a couple options, and one is to bow out because eventually, you know, the great Fox News talking point, well, who do you have that's got the votes? Because you guys don't have the votes. It's like, neither does McCarthy. McCarthy doesn't have the votes. He needs 218. He doesn't have 218. So what do? You could change. You could get a bunch of Democrats to vote president or not show up, and then you could become speaker, which would mean you have to give the Democrats something of value, meaning he's exactly what the 20 are saying he is. He will literally go over to the Democrats and sell out America to get some kind of deal just so he can be Speaker of the House. So it's all about him. Okay, so that's one thing he could do. The other thing he could do is he can concede. He could concede to this faction of 20, which is already happening. They're already trying to negotiate. I don't know what the holdouts are on McCarthy's point, or McCarthy's end, but the fact he's got to concede means he's not with American people. Like, shouldn't he just automatically be trying to give the Rules Committee to people that are more conservative? Shouldn't he automatically be trying to get only single subject bills? Shouldn't he automatically agree to not extend the debt ceiling? Why does he have to concede? Because he's a rhino. He's part of the swamp. He's part of the establishment. So really it comes down to, it's just a person. He's earned this because of all his fundraising. We don't care about that, but they care about that in the swamp.
Yep. I mean, seriously, these guys, when I saw in the Capitals, it's like a drug to them. Like being in this position of power and the prestige that comes with it, the way everybody kisses their butts, they get hooked on this thing. So I guarantee he feels entitled to it. He wants it more than anything. Like I bet there is nothing he wouldn't do to be in this position, although apparently he hasn't quite done enough. But he wants it so bad.
Yeah.
Just like Kurt Dowd in the Minnesota State House. He wants that position so bad to be the person who all the news cameras come to and have all this influence. I find it really pathetic, quite honestly, that these people are so lured into these positions of power and just the high they obviously get off of it.
Yeah, and I think it's worthy of noting that had there been a slim Republican majority in this last election and you were in there, this would have happened in the Minnesota legislature.
Oh, yeah, I had like wet dreams about doing this. Are you kidding me? This is like exactly the scenario that I would have loved in the State House, and because to do the exact same thing that they're doing, to hold back the votes so that, that they have to give something back and further empower the other members of the body.
Right, and any problem with Kevin McCarthy, Kurt Dowd is double as bad. Like, that guy was vindictive. He was punitive. He threatened to kick people off of committees. He would bring votes. He'd say, this is a tier 1 vote. You got to get in line on this kind of stuff. It's like, so these guys don't actually get to vote their conscience, which is ridiculous. There's a reason four people initially left the House Republican caucus. What was that, in 2018, I think it was? And then, of course, you joined it, and they kicked you out because they're a bunch of, Say that for another time.
I'd love to talk about that sometime.
Politicians, right? You gotta love them. Most people don't. Congress gets 11% approval rating. So I always laugh at this. It's like, oh no, Congress isn't getting on with their business. It's like when they get on with their business, people don't approve. So maybe we should mix things up a little bit. Let's get the approval ratings of Congress up. You got something you want to read, Bridget? Give me that look.
Curtis Charles says Scalise has been talked about as a possible option if this doesn't start to change.
Well, I don't know Scalise as well as Jesse. Jesse follows this kind of stuff more, and he says that's actually a worse option.
Oh.
So there is so honestly, we'll learn the principles real quick of these 20 if Scalise is the better option according to them. But it doesn't seem like he'd be any different. You know, the one thing about Scalise is the guy literally got shot. You remember this? He actually got shot by a Hillary Clinton supporter. No one wants to talk about that.
That was a Bernie guy. I thought it was a Bernie bro.
Was it a Bernie guy? So I always say Hillary, but yeah, you're right. Bernie, a pro-Bernie guy. So there you go. But we should be concerned about the numbnuts that went into the Capitol with a buffalo head. That's what we should really be concerned about.
Oh yeah. Oh, the anniversary today.
Yeah,
that's what we're talking about.
Oh yeah.
I had someone comment go, are they just doing this so that the Democrats don't just make this the big thing today at the Capitol? I'm like, no, I don't think that's what
I think so.
We were waiting for Clybourne to get done talking, and then we learn what the first ballot's going to look like. You know, Gates is up there looking like he's going to nominate someone. Do they have another option? Because if you were tracking, and we do have a tracker, we've put it on Facebook, the last ballot was Jeffries, McCarthy, Trump, Hearn, Donalds. Hearn had 7 votes, Donalds had 12, and Trump had 1. Let's get back and do some audio here. That's the Democrats nominating the election denier, Hakeem Jeffries, who said that Trump wasn't a legitimate president. He was a fake president.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Florida rise?
To submit a name for nomination for the position of Speaker of the House.
There you go.
The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My colleague from California, Mr. Garcia, knows the incredibly high regard I hold him in. He is a patriot.
Dan Garcia is
I
being
deeply
nominated.
Admire him, but I must take some exception with some of the comments he made in his nomination.
I was going to say, that would be
McCarthy.
really bizarre.
First, he said that Mr. McCarthy has earned the position. You only earn the position of Speaker of the House if you can get the votes. Mr. McCarthy doesn't have the votes today. He will not have the votes tomorrow, and he will not have the votes next week, next month, next year. And so one must wonder, Madam Clerk, is this an exercise in vanity for someone who has done the math, taken the counts, and is putting this institution through something that absolutely
gets the rules, attributing motive.
My colleague, Mr. Garcia, did not say this, but many of my other Republican colleagues have. They believe that Mr. McCarthy has earned the position of Speaker of the House because he raised $500 million to get Republicans elected.
No, come on, cameras, go to.
The gentleman is not recognized.
You hear that? Speaking of scripted, this guy's got to tell her what to say.
Not to engage in
fairness to the clerk,
against other members of the House.
Rough job for her.
Several believe
she doesn't know how to do this stuff, right? She's playing the Speaker of the House.
Position of Speaker by raising enormous sums of money, and there is no doubt that the individual that was nominated by Mr. Garcia is the LeBron James of special interest fundraising in this town. There is nobody better. But I would suggest that there are qualifications for Speaker that are far more important. There are attributes that are far more important. Jim Jordan has those, and I am submitting his name.
Going back to Jim
for
Jordan, that's
nomination
interesting.
At this time. I heard my colleague from California, Mr. Garcia, say that we seek pure, selfless intent, and I could not agree more with that assessment. Mr. Jordan, indeed, is reflective of pure, selfless intent. I don't know that the same can be said for the Republican alternative. Let's start with purity. Many of you have seen the reports that there are negotiations to determine whether or not on this side of the aisle there can be a deal, a meeting of the minds, a grand bargain that would allow us to proceed with the speakership. And I want all of my colleagues to know, regardless of your perspective on me, how impure some of those negotiations have gone. And I want the country to know. The principal goal of the people who are objecting to Mr. McCarthy on the Republican side is that we don't believe the rules of this place unlock the potential of all of the members to be able to cast votes on individual bills and to offer amendments on appropriations acts. And we're also concerned about spending that has ballooned our debt and borrowed against the future generations of American citizens. And Mr. McCarthy said, well, goodness, to the objectors, a lot of you want to be on the Oversight and Judiciary Committee, and you never submit your names to be on the Rules Committee or the Appropriations Committee. And so, gosh, if you'll get a list of folks who are willing to come early on fly-in days for rules, and folks who are willing to take on the extra burden of our appropriators who work so hard, then I'll certainly work to do that. And so we endeavored in good faith, in pure good faith, to create that list. And then what did Mr. McCarthy do? He went out to the media and came to other members of the conference and said, see, they just want jobs for themselves. That is not pure. Selflessness. Selflessness is not selling shares of yourself to the lobby corps and then doing their bidding at the expense of the American people. But there certainly is intent. And it's an intent driven almost exclusively by personal ambition, and that ambition is paralyzing the House now. Madam Clerk, at this time, there is great trust in Mr. Jordan, and that's why I am nominating him. And there is insufficient trust in Kevin McCarthy.
Right?
There are some who have been objecting to Mr. McCarthy who are working on perhaps changes to the rules, changes to circumstance that would convert the speakership from the great, awesome, powerful position it is now to more of a ceremonial position, almost akin to the Speaker in the British House of Commons. I referred to it previously as a straitjacket that some of us were trying to construct with better rules and better personnel because we do not trust Mr. McCarthy with power, because we know who he will use it for, and we are concerned it will not be for the American people. We trust Jim Jordan. I nominate
This is a really
him,
good speech, and I think it's a good move to do Jim Jordan, or nominate Jim Jordan, because he's very popular with a conservative base. He's probably the most
What purpose does the gentlewoman from
well-known
Colorado rise?
and liked.
Madam Clerk, I rise to enter a name for
She's
nomination
probably
for
going to do
Speaker.
Kevin Hearn, I'm
The
guessing.
gentlewoman is recognized.
Once again, I just stand here today to nominate Kevin Hearn, the chairman of the Republican Study Committee, the largest caucus in the Republican Conference, who unanimously
So right
was
now you
elected
see
as
at least
chairman,
there's 2 votes
whom I believe
against McCarthy.
can
There needs to be
unite
5.
this
So you
Republican
Boebert's going to vote for Hearn,
conference and put forward
and
the
Gates will vote
agenda
for
that we all promise to work hard
Jordan.
on and serve our American people to the best of our abilities.
And
with.
basically,
I believe that Kevin
it's
Hearn
pretty obvious there's
will
going to
be
be
a
5
fighter
votes.
for our
McCarthy
national
will not
debt.
be speaker
I
on
get
this
texts on a
ballot.
regular basis at how inflation
The way
is
Gates
hurting
spoke
families,
sounds like
how grocery
he will not be
prices
Speaker of the House
are
today.
skyrocketing continuously.
He'll probably
He
stay
has
in the
crafted
Speaker's office.
a budget
That's pretty
that
unprecedented,
balances
but
and will bring that
he's
to
not
the
going to be
floor
Speaker
to
today.
help
We'll learn
the
real
American
quick.
people. Madam Clerk,
You
I
get through the
nominate
C's,
Kevin Hearn
and you
as
already
Speaker.
know
Thank you.
there's 5 votes. The big question is, will they gain momentum?
The reading clerk will call the roll.
And you could see, and we'll have our tracker up. In fact, I could go post this online real quick too. I'm gonna put it on our Facebook, or I'll put it on Twitter as well. If you go to look down here, Dawson, go put the Twitter, pop it up on the screen. Action_Liberty on Twitter. Now that Elon Musk's in control, we figured it's a safe bet that Twitter will be pro free speech. A lot better than Facebook. I'm just going to put, here's the tracker for 20 conservatives in speaker vote.
Alford. Allen.
McCarthy. Allred.
There, it's on our Twitter. So go to our Twitter account. You can follow this, and then go ahead and hit what is it? Like or
McCarthy.
what is Twitter? Follow.
Armstrong.
Follow on Twitter, right?
I don't know. I don't want to do Twitter.
Yeah, it's follow.
Arrington.
We're gonna wait till basically Biggs. Andy Biggs will be the first one, followed by Dan Bishop, North Carolina, and Lauren Boebert. We know Lauren Boebert's vote.
Babin.
You only need 5. Only needs to be 5 people not voting for McCarthy, so either voting for Jordan, Hearn, or somebody else, and McCarthy can't get the votes. Or if Spartz continues to vote present, that also
Balderson.
makes it impossible for McCarthy to get the votes unless he's got to deal with the Democrats.
Ballant. Jeffries. Banks.
So we're in the B's already. What do you think's going to happen, Mort?
I think Jordan and Hearn get 20 votes combined. Yeah, I think that's the way things have been going.
Jeffries.
It'd be a big news story if they
of
don't,
Florida.
because that means
McCarthy.
there's waning support from the
Beatty.
20. And it's a big news story if there's more,
Jeffries.
because it means they're gaining
Vince.
momentum. And you could tell there is some real frustration in the Republican conference. You could see those people childishly getting up and walking out as Matt Gaetz is speaking. He's not making a lot of friends up there, so to speak, right, Mort?
Yeah, good for him.
Which Mort was infamous for not making a lot of friends up at the Capitol. Okay, we're at Bice, so don't let me forget to bring that up.
Jordan.
All right, so Biggs went Jordan. Biggs is probably one of the most reliable votes as well. So Dan Bishop, so it'll be Bishop in North Carolina. There's 2 bishops, so not the one of Georgia, but the one of North Carolina.
Bilirakis. McCarthy. Bishop of Georgia.
There's Dan Bishop of North Carolina
Jeffries.
getting ready to speak. Looks like a guy that's not going to vote
Bishop
for
of
McCarthy.
North Carolina.
Oh, that's the story right there. There you go. So there is waning support right now. So what deal did he get? It's actually a moot point, though.
Blumenauer. Jeffries.
It's a moot point because, quite frankly,
Blunt Rochester.
5 people hold it up. But that is a story.
Jeffries.
Boebert will be the next.
Um,
Well, at least we had something happen because, boy, we went 8 ballots with
Bonavicchi.
nothing. Or 7 ballots with nothing. Go ahead.
Jeffries.
Curtis again says deals apparently were made with about 10 of the holdouts last night.
McCarthy.
So I guess we'll see.
Bowman.
And I've seen
Jeffries.
so many different news stories.
Boyle of Pennsylvania.
I'm sorry, I missed Boebert. Boebert obviously voted for her.
Jeffries.
Brasheen would be the next one. Or Burkeen.
Burkeen. McCarthy.
So there you go. So, yep, you are seeing McCarthy is starting to gain votes, meaning that they have got a deal. But once again, it comes down to 5. There's Mary Miller. She looks like she's not ready.
Brown.
That's standing next to Paulina Luna.
Jeffries. Brownlee. Jeffries. Buchanan.
Michael Cloud will be next, followed by Andrew Clyde.
McCarthy. Buck. Buck. Bouchon. McCarthy.
So I would
Budzinski.
expect at this point, Mort, that
Jeffries.
because there have been 2 people that have
Burchett.
flipped and gone McCarthy, that you're not going to see any new people leave
Burchett.
McCarthy at this point.
Yeah, I can't imagine that would happen at this point.
Burgess.
It'd be really interesting to
McCarthy.
see what kind of deal or concession that they got
Burleson.
from this.
McCarthy.
But it's
Yeah, that's what makes you think. Was it
Bush.
something meaningful, right? Was it
Jeffries.
a particular rule change that
Calvert.
that individual wanted, or was it
McCarthy.
something
right.
very selfish that they
Hemick.
just personally benefited from? Or maybe the people
McCarthy.
in their district, because they love to dole out money.
Caraballo.
We'll do that bridge for you. We'll do
Jeffries.
that highway.
Right.
Carbajal.
So they can, go back and
Jeffries.
tell their constituents how they brought home the
Cardenas.
bacon.
Now, what's
Jeffries.
great about this play also
Carey.
is, McCarthy's
McCarthy.
going to, if he gets the speaker position, which is
Carl.
unknown still at this point, he's going to have to basically walking eggshells because essentially any bad moves he makes, the Gateses of the world will go tell the American people, and it'll affirm what they've been saying about Kevin McCarthy, right? And then all the people that were pushing for Kevin McCarthy will have to own that. And then if McCarthy doesn't do that stuff, massive win.
Yeah.
So once again, what a great play.
It really is. I mean, you're really setting up kind of a win-win or a lose-lose for the establishment here. For exactly what you just said. I mean, it makes so much sense, but it takes courage to be able to break away from the rank and file and do something like this. Like, this takes real guts. And I guess it isn't shocking to see some peel off because, like I said, probably 4 or 5 people are actually hardcore standing against McCarthy, and the others, I think, are just being opportunistic.
And it gets tougher. It gets tougher when you have smaller numbers. You know, you were 1.
Yeah, it doesn't get much smaller than that.
Yeah. More infamously didn't make a lot of friends up at the Capitol. They hated his guts. Right, Bridget?
They did. It was pretty petty.
Bridget was his part-time legislative assistant.
Yeah, when I would force votes on things like, was it the stop vaccine mandate? Or was it multiple? They would get up and leave the floor.
Yep.
So they wouldn't vote at all.
They laughed and mocked
or they
you.
would speak against you, like, what's his name?
Clark of Massachusetts.
Nolan West?
Yes, Nolan West.
I know Nolan West.
Clark of New York.
All right, we're getting close to Cloud. It'd be Cloud and then a couple between, and then it's Clyde. So these will be interesting.
McCarthy.
Cloud's next, I believe.
Cloud. McCarthy.
Yep, so another defector. It'd be interesting to see Byron Donalds. So we got Andrew Clyde in a couple votes. It'd be after Clyburn, I believe.
Jeffries.
Here we go.
Clyde.
Must have been McCarthy.
I wish we could actually get the audio what they're saying. Typical politicians, they got to actually tell us.
Cohen.
Or they got to say more than just the name. All right, so that's already 4 defectors, which, you know, if you're pro not McCarthy or anti-McCarthy, pro not McCarthy, why would I say that? Anti-McCarthy, you can bleed 15 votes, essentially. I'm guessing at this stage, Sparts, who's been voting present, will not vote present anymore. That would be a shocker to me. But her present vote would actually come into play here.
Craig. Jeffries.
I take that back. Her present vote would not, it would come into play because he would still need that to get to 218.
Crawford.
Eli Crane will be the next one. I would imagine
Crenshaw.
he caves, just judging by the people that have caved.
Crockett. Jeffries.
The ones you don't expect are Gates, Bob Good, maybe even Paul Gosar.
Curtis.
Chip Roy.
Chip Roy, that's right.
Davids of Kansas.
So I'm seeing the 5 already.
Jeffries. Davidson.
Oh, did we miss Crane?
McCarthy.
What happened with Crane?
He was McCarthy, I think.
No, we got Hearn.
Davis
Looks
of
like he went
Illinois.
Hearn.
Oh.
We totally missed that.
Jeffries. Davis of
Can't
North
shut my big
Carolina.
mouth. Yeah, Hearn's got 2 votes. So
Jeffries.
Eli Crane. So Donalds is the
Dean,
next one of
Pennsylvania.
importance. Byron Donalds
Jeffries.
has voted for himself since
Daggett.
ballot 4.
Jeffries.
And before that, he voted.
De La
He actually
Cruz.
voted McCarthy for the first 2 ballots, and then Jordan.
McCarthy.
So you could assume that Byron Donalds could go back to
DeLauro.
McCarthy. He's actually voted for McCarthy on a ballot.
Jeffries.
Or he's voted on 2
Delbene.
ballots.
Jeffries.
If Donalds doesn't vote McCarthy, then the math
DeLuzio.
becomes really simple here.
Jeffries.
And the next one will be Matt Gates. We
Desagna.
know he's going to be voting for
Jeffries.
Jordan.
Desjardins. McCarthy. D'Esposito. McCarthy.
So even if McCarthy does win,
Diaz
folks,
Balart.
it's still a big win for the American people. Obviously, there's been
Diaz
concessions.
Balart.
Those guys did not start voting McCarthy unless there was some good deal given.
Dingle.
And that's why this play is so great, and that's why Fox News was so wrong on this.
Doggett.
Because Fox News took the side of he's earned it.
Jeffries.
Here we go.
Donalds.
There you go. And that's not shocking because he has voted McCarthy in the past. Oh, there's Tom Emmer. Thank you. Thank you for getting on board. Now, we have to note, right, Mort, that it feels good to get those claps, right? Now they're seen as heroes. Before they're enemies, right? Or as, well, I think Crenshaw has both called them enemies and terrorists, if I'm counting all the bad names.
He did not. He called them terrorists.
You didn't see that?
No.
Yeah, I think he was basically using as an analogy, you don't negotiate with terrorists, but he basically alluded to them being terrorists.
Yeah.
He definitely called them enemies. So, anyhow, you're viewed that way on all these previous votes, but now you're getting applause, and they're going to forget. They're all loving these guys now, the ones that have flipped, right?
Oh, yeah. Yep. I mean, I like to give the analogy like there's safety in the herd, right? It's really tough to break away from the herd and go in a direction that you know is the right principled direction to go because you get picked off.
Right.
So, yeah, that's not surprising to see them just stick with the whole herd mentality. We may have seen some of that during COVID.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah, maybe.
Ferguson.
Just so you guys know, the numbers already are against McCarthy because you have Gates coming up, who's actually voted already or gave the nomination for Jordan, and well, I guess we have Boebert, but I just assume Bob Good is gonna stick with it.
McCarthy.
Let me just go through this list here: Bob Good, Paul Gosar, and then Chip Roy.
McCarthy.
I mean I guess we shouldn't count the chickens before they hatch here, but.
Flood. McCarthy.
The fact that McCarthy doesn't have votes still suggests that there's negotiations that still need to occur, in my opinion.
Jeffries. Fox. McCarthy. Lois Franco. Jeffries. C. Scott Franklin. McCarthy. Frost.
I think the American people deserve to know what deal was struck too, and I'm not certain I've seen anything about it.
McCarthy.
Yeah, and I'm sure the real underhanded ones we'll never even hear about.
Yeah.
McCarthy. Gates. Jordan. Gallagher.
Oh, Gates, yeah,
McCarthy.
Jordan.
Gallego.
So yeah, we are
Jeffries.
4 votes,
Garamendi.
not McCarthy on the Republican side. It just takes Good or Gosar to,
McCarthy.
and then I think you'll hear some boos.
Mike Garcia. McCarthy. Robert Garcia. Jeffries. Garcia of Illinois. Jeffries. Garcia of Texas. Jeffries. Jimenez.
I think I said
McCarthy.
Dan Garcia before. I meant Mike Garcia when I was talking about
Golden of Maine.
the guy speaking.
Jeffries.
McCarthy.
Goldman of New York.
I think we got Good after this.
Goldman of New York. Gomez. Jeffries. Tony Gonzalez. McCarthy. Vicente Gonzalez. Jeffries. Good of Virginia.
There you go. That's the 5. So Kevin McCarthy will not be
Gooden of
Speaker of the House on this vote. He will remain in the Speaker's office, apparently, squatting.
Gosar. Gosar. Gottheimer.
Could be nothing, but it is interesting Gosar wasn't there to vote. Harris will be
Granger.
next. And then you wait till
McCarthy.
Paulina Luna. Harris has
Graves
been a
of
pretty
Louisiana.
reliable vote. He's voted probably for the most. Zeldin,
McCarthy.
Jordan, Donalds,
Graves of Missouri.
Hearn.
McCarthy.
Hearn's still nominated, so will he stick with Hearn?
Green of Tennessee.
So that's Andy Harris. That'd be the
McCarthy.
next one on the list. Right now they have the numbers,
Green
as we've
of
mentioned
Texas.
many of the days that we've been covering this, that you kind of want a little cushion room in case someone changes their mind last minute. So MNUTS always does that.
Green of Georgia. McCarthy.
Wouldn't that be funny if Marjorie
Griffith.
Taylor Greene just all of a sudden flips her vote?
McCarthy. Grijalva. Jeffries. Grothman. McCarthy. Guest. McCarthy. Guthrie. McCarthy. Hageman. McCarthy. Harder of California.
So we're waiting for Harris
Jeffries.
coming up.
Harris.
Jordan, there you go. So that's the cushion room. Andy Harris has been pretty
Harshbarger.
disciplined.
McCarthy.
So I'm seeing probably about 10 at
Hayes.
least, I would imagine. So I think 10 probably have dropped
Jeffries.
off at this point.
Hearn.
Which
The-
sounds like, was it Curtis? That's what he had said, that about
McCarthy.
half of them struck
Mhm.
deals last night.
Which is what you would
Higgins of
expect.
Louisiana.
I think the American people deserve to know what the deal was that dropped these people off. If I was a constituent of theirs, I would be asking that question.
Higgins of New York.
Because I think there is a
Jeffries.
principle here. Are you going to go with
Hill.
Kevin McCarthy, who's obviously the swamp, obviously the status quo? The status quo
Times.
is the problem in Washington, D.C.
Jeffries.
We're $32 trillion in debt, and that's just current liabilities, not unfunded liabilities like
Horsford.
Medicare and Social Security, with no plan to
Jeffries.
fix that, nothing.
Houchin.
And so that's the problem.
McCarthy.
It's the status quo, and that is
Houlihan.
there's not a person that represents the
Jeffries.
status quo more than Kevin McCarthy. He's been in leadership for
Hoyer.
over a dozen years,
Jeffries.
or over a decade.
Hoyle
So
of Oregon.
I think it has been a dozen years, 2009 or something like that.
Jeffries.
I sometimes hear
Hudson.
Hakeem, and I think they're saying McCarthy.
McCarthy.
It's like, what?
Huffman.
And for the people like every single Fox
Jeffries.
News commentator except Tucker Carlson,
Huizenga.
thank you, Tucker, that are like, this is an embarrassment, that's humiliating, it makes us look terrible. We can't get the good work of the people done if this keeps happening. Like, what do you expect to come out of this Congress? Biden's still the president, Democrats control the Senate.
Isa.
Like, gridlock is beautiful.
Right.
Like, this is not a bad thing whatsoever.
Ivy.
I've been making the argument,
Jeffries.
and I didn't know this before this week, that until they
Jackson,
appoint a
Illinois.
speaker, they can't conduct business. So if they can't conduct business,
Jeffries.
we're saving trillions of dollars. I mean,
Jackson,
isn't that a big win
Carolina.
for the American people?
But what if the
Jeffries.
government shuts down, Jake?
First of all, majority of the government doesn't shut down. It's an autopilot. It's crazy. In Washington, D.C., there's literally
Jackson, Texas.
autopilot for the biggest portion of the budget. So what happens when there's a shutdown? It's like the park system,
McCarthy.
and they make it as painful as possible. They put the cones there. They don't even allow you in there. It's like,
Jackson Lee.
wait, allow them in there, right? I remember, oh my God, there's this infamous photo back in the day of the government shutdown, and
Jeffries.
the Republicans were arguing against it,
Jacobs.
and they go, if the Democrats don't come to this,
Jeffries.
these are the things you can't do in the shutdown. And they got a bunch of like signs, and it's
James.
like your
McCarthy.
liquor license and blah blah. And they
Jayapal.
put someone had lakes up there.
Jeffries.
I was like, I'm pretty sure you can still go out on a
Jeffries.
lake.
Yeah, I bet you could. I bet it's surrounded by
Jeffries.
agents or.
I
Well,
think-
so this is why two bills I introduced last year. One of them in the event of a state government shutdown, because every Republican on earth is so scared of a government shutdown. But I introduced a bill that said, well, the way Walls shut down the entire state
Johnson of
and
Georgia.
businesses, they couldn't collect any revenue from their customers,
Jeffries.
and they don't get to go back retroactively
Johnson
and
of
just charge
Louisiana.
people for services they never provided. So one of my bills was, if the
McCarthy.
state government shuts down because we can't agree on a budget,
Johnson of
well then
Ohio.
state taxes cease to be collected.
McCarthy.
Right.
And whenever the government reopens, they don't get to go
Johnson
back
of South
retroactively and collect
Dakota.
those taxes, just like businesses like,
McCarthy.
Lisa Monet, Lisa Hanson, they
Jordan.
couldn't go back and say, hey, I was closed
McCarthy.
2 months. Why don't you just, pay for a bunch of coffee you
Joyce
never
of
drank?
Ohio.
Yeah, it's about the most
McCarthy.
common sense bill that you could think of,
Joyce
and
of
yet no
Pennsylvania.
support for that whatsoever. Right?
McCarthy.
I got all the Republicans
Kim
in tax
Harder
committee
Dove.
voted for it because they would have been morons to not
Any
vote for it.
co-signers on the bill?
Jeffries.
Oh boy, I don't remember.
I
Captor.
don't know either.
I don't know.
Jeffries.
Well, let's just put it this way: no big
King of New
momentum
Jersey.
behind that, and it shouldn't just be Republicans; it should be Democrats
Oh,
too.
absolutely. Yep.
Keating. Jeffries.
The next vote would be Paulina Luna, so we're in the
Kelly of
K's.
Illinois.
We gotta wait to the L's.
Jeffries.
Luna seems to be pretty strong. I've been
Kelly
pretty
of
impressed by
Mississippi.
her.
McCarthy.
I think she was the one that was getting harassed,
Kelly,
sexually harassed
Pennsylvania.
or something like that. She had posted
McCarthy.
a video of someone falling out, like giving her
Kana.
crap, and then bringing up
Jeffries.
like dirt,
Higgins of Virginia.
probably not real, as she's
McCarthy.
trying to make her way out to a vehicle. You gotta go
Kildee.
check that out. Don't for a
Jeffries.
second
Kylie.
underestimate the lengths that the establishment,
Kilmer.
the Washington insiders, the special interests will go to get
Kim
what
of
they need.
California.
And that's Kevin McCarthy as the Speaker of the House. There's a reason they
McCarthy.
want Kevin McCarthy. There's a reason
Kim
Fox
of New
News is
Jersey.
pimping this stuff out, because they
Jeffries.
want the status quo.
Krishnamurthy.
You know, I wrote this in my email last night. There's no real
Custer.
desire by politicians to solve
Jeffries.
problems, because if
No.
you solve
Custer.
problems, then what do they get to
McCarthy.
try to fight to win an election, right?
LaHood.
Yeah, and if you solve a problem, actually do
McCarthy.
something, you're going to piss somebody off who doesn't agree with your solution, and that creates political
La Lota.
pain.
Yeah, I've kind of wondered, do some pro-life
McCarthy.
groups just not want to solve that issue because,
Lamaufa.
quite frankly, the issue goes away for them?
Oh, I went to one of
McCarthy.
MCCL's meetings in Bloomington, and just sat
Lamborn.
there and attended it, and it was their head of their fundraising. I can't remember the gal's name.
Lansman.
But eventually I introduced myself and said, hey, look, you know, you're bashing this
Jeffries.
Minnesota Right to Life group, but
Langworthy.
they've had my back for the last 18 months,
McCarthy.
and you guys haven't done anything. I said, I introduced life of conception
Larson of
legislation,
Washington.
and MCCL told me that they did
Jeffries.
not support life of conception bills.
Really?
They said
Larson
it was
of
too
Connecticut.
extreme. This is
Really?
like 5 minutes after she said they support life from conception to
Jeffries.
natural death.
They thought that was too extreme.
Yeah,
Ladder.
MCCL.
You know, they're part of this obnoxious Republican ranks, like that goes up to
Materna.
Chairman David Han, that literally get the abortion thing
McCarthy.
completely wrong. And if we got time to break to it, I'll show you the HF1, the Democrats' top priority in this legislative
McCarthy.
session. And they basically, the Democrats, want to
We,
protect abortion
California.
to the moment of birth. And as we
Jeffries.
discussed in California,
We
even
of
past birth.
Florida.
And it's absolutely
McCarthy.
asinine to think that we're the extremists on
We of
abortion.
Nevada.
Like killing a 39-week
We
baby
of Pennsylvania.
that could easily live outside the
Jeffries.
mother's womb,
Ledger
to think
Fernandez.
that that's not extreme, I think most people believe that's extreme
Ledger
position, and that's what the
Fernandez.
Democrats want. That's in their bill. Once again, we're in L, so we're waiting for Paulina Luna of
Lesko.
Florida. I'm pretty sure she's Florida.
McCarthy.
To
Letlow.
vote.
McCarthy.
The votes already are 6
Levin.
that are not McCarthy from the
Jeffries.
Republican conference, meaning that he cannot
Lou.
attain the 218 unless
Jeffries.
Democrats start voting for him. Oh, if
LaFrance.
that happens. Well, that's clearly not going to happen because he's obviously
Louderville.
conceded things to Republicans, so he's not going to concede them to
McCarthy.
Democrats. Well,
Yeah.
I guess he could concede
Lucas.
something to some Democrats.
I wouldn't be surprised if he played both sides of the fence, but
Lute
the
Camas.
There's Luna right there. That's why they're showing her. She's next.
Luna.
Jordan. McCarthy. Yeah, it's like they have to say something.
yeah, they need to justify it. and-
Yeah. We had a red on her from yesterday because we don't know how. We think she voted for Donald's on the 11th ballot, but it was inaudible if she was there, or she went to the speaker's desk after, or the clerk's desk afterwards. Next up would be Mary Miller of
Mace.
Illinois. She's been pretty staunch,
Mace.
pretty disciplined.
McCarthy. Magaziner.
Of course, before we get to Miller, we'll have McCarthy, which will get a big round of
Maliotakis.
applause from the GOP
McCarthy.
conference. Now you kind of understand why there's this
Mann.
energy in the Republican ranks
McCarthy.
today.
Manning. Jeffries. Massey. McCarthy.
Such a disappointment.
Mass.
Yeah,
Nancy.
McCarthy.
that's too bad. See, Massey could have been the
Matsui.
one that they could have pulled over, right?
Jeffries.
Yeah, you would sure think so.
McBath. Jeffries.
But on that
McCarthy.
abortion thing, I got to say this because even my banker, who's a pretty big lefty, she was saying it's kind of nice to see both Republicans and Democrats agreeing that there's not enough babies being had. And I gave her this look of, you got to be kidding me, because how can people like AOC go out there, and I've seen it, that she's saying we're not
McCall.
having enough babies when they support
McCarthy.
the aborting of babies. And I
Yeah.
think last I looked,
McLean.
Planned Parenthood aborts 1,000
McCarthy.
babies a day across the country.
McClintock.
I mean, it's
Yeah, I would be
absolutely
shocked by
insane.
that.
McCarthy. McCullum. Jeffries. McCormick.
Waiting for Mary Miller of Illinois. That'd be the next one that you would expect. At this point, I don't think you will expect any new votes against McCarthy. It would seem very unlikely since he's now gaining votes. Gaining votes means something only emotionally. It means nothing when it comes to actually substance, because he has to get 218, and as long as 5 Republicans, and right now they're at 6, are lockstep against him as Speaker, he cannot attain that position unless he gets Democrat votes. Don't see that happening either. So the big story so far today, I guess, is that people are peeling off of the 20, and I think the reason being is there's been some concession. I think we, the American people, here we go. So McCarthy, it sounds like. So Ralph Norman will be the next one, followed by Andy
Miller of
Olds.
Ohio. McCarthy. Miller of West Virginia.
Rosendale, Montana is not
McCarthy.
likely to vote McCarthy, so
Miller
there's
Meeks.
another strong
McCarthy.
vote, so there'll probably be
Mills.
7 at least.
McCarthy.
Paul
Molinaro.
Gosar did not vote,
McCarthy.
so they'll follow up with him at the end.
Molinar. McCarthy. Mooney. McCarthy. Moore of Alabama. McCarthy. Moore of Utah. McCarthy. Moore of Wisconsin. Jeffries. Moran. McCarthy. Morelli.
I'd be very curious right
Jeffries.
now if the people that have
Moskowitz.
changed their vote
Jeffries.
are
Moulton.
making any kind of
Jeffries.
statement about it,
Mervan.
what they got from it.
Jeffries. Mullen.
I'm guessing Byron Donalds might be the best one
Jeffries.
to look up.
Murphy. Murphy.
And while we have a little break here,
McCarthy.
I would request that you
Nadler.
follow us on Twitter,
Jeffries.
which seems to be one of the free speech
Napolitano.
platforms that are out there.
Jeffries.
And you can go to action_liberty. That's the
Jeffries.
handle.
Nagoose. Jeffries. Nails. McCarthy. Newhouse. McCarthy. Nickel.
Yeah, Byron Donald's not tweeting anything
Jeffries.
about the deal.
Norcross.
So,
Jeffries. Norman.
yeah, I'm kind of curious. So there you go. Norman, the first one to vote McCarthy and not give a whole speech about it. So Andy Ogue. So definitely they've gotten something pretty substantive.
None of Iowa. McCarthy.
See, that's what I would be as a constituent, demanding to know why you changed your vote.
Oh, yeah.
There might be
They
a valid
deserve it.
reason,
McCarthy.
okay? Because in the end,
Ocasio-Cortez.
if McCarthy's going to do the right
Jeffries.
thing, then okay, he'll be the
Ogles.
speaker. He's leading in votes. But here we go, Ogles.
Ogles. Omar. Jeffries. Owens. McCarthy. Pallone. Jeffries. Palmer.
So Andy Ogles, for whatever reason, wasn't there to vote, and that could
Panetta.
be simply that the same reason as
Pappas.
who was it?
Jeffries.
Gosar. They're in the
Pasquale.
back making some deals right now,
Jeffries.
and it could be
Payne.
not related to that at all. Scott Perry would be the next vote, followed by Matt Rosendale, Chip Roy. If Rosendale and Chip Roy go McCarthy, that's pretty huge. Those guys have been pretty staunchly against it. You got something to? You got a comment to read?
Jeffries.
Bridget?
There's a couple that I could read off here.
Pence.
Let's wait till after
McCarthy.
Perry here.
Okay.
Perez. Jeffries. Perry. McCarthy.
Okay, so, and I'm not shocked by that. So Rosendale and Roy will be the next ones. Or what are the comments?
Let's see. So from a little bit ago, Galen Norris says, as has been said, a government in Gridlock is a government that can't hurt people with bad policy.
Yep.
But Curtis again says, from what I've seen, McCarthy conceded on the one-member motion to vacate.
Phillips.
Rules Committee seats for the Freedom Caucus, a vote on term limits,
Pingree.
standalone votes on each of the 12-year appropriation bills, allowing 4 amendments to be offered by any
Slow down there,
lawmaker.
Bridget. What was the? Yeah,
Sorry.
Yeah, you're reading through that one fast. I'm
Allowing
listening to
for-
2 things right now, so.
Oh, I forget because I don't have that in. Allowing for amendments to be offered by any lawmaker and separate votes on each earmarks included in those packages.
See, that right there is exactly
Quigley.
why Kevin McCarthy is the problem.
Jeffries.
That you even have to negotiate the
Ramirez.
ability to offer amendments.
That's
Which-
insane to me.
Jeffries.
Isn't
I
that
just-
crazy?
I can't even
Raskin.
imagine that. That is absolutely ridiculous.
Jeffries.
That not anybody can just offer an
Reschenfeller.
amendment.
Does the
McCarthy.
speaker make that rule though? Is that like?
Rogers of Washington.
Well, it's the
Well,
Rules
yeah,
Committee.
the Rules
and
Committee, but
McCarthy.
they would do the bidding of the speaker.
Rogers of Alabama.
So we were waiting on Matt Rosendale of Montana, and then followed by Chip Roy. Once again, the votes already are 6, so even if there was one
McCarthy.
defector from that,
Rogers of Kentucky. Rogers of Kentucky. McCarthy. Rose. McCarthy. Rosendale.
Hearn. Ah! Tapping good on the shoulder. Oh, God.
Ross. Jeffries.
Leave it to Montana to have a decent rep.
Rouser.
Chip Roy will most, I mean, if
McCarthy.
Chip is
Roy.
Donald, or. Oh,
Whoa.
interesting.
Wow.
That is interesting there. He's been one of the strong ones. So really all that's left is Keith Self. And then Victoria Spartz has been voting present. So it looks
Ruiz.
like the vote right now is seven people who are voting other.
Inversberger. Jeffries. Rutherford. McCarthy.
And we don't have Paul Gosar's vote
Ryan.
yet, just FYI. So we still have to
Jeffries.
figure out where Gosar, and he's one of the stronger
Salazar.
ones. So Key Self, and then Victoria
Salazar.
Spartz. I gotta imagine Spartz, who's been voting present for whatever
Salinas.
reason, I don't understand that,
Jeffries.
is gonna now vote for
Sanchez.
McCarthy.
Sanchez.
It makes me think that like McCarthy did something to her that she doesn't like.
Santos.
It's like a
McCarthy.
personal thing.
Sarbanes. Jeffries. Scalise. McCarthy. Scanlon. Jeffries. Schakowsky. Jeffries. Schiff. Jeffries. Schneider. Jeffries. Skolton. Jeffries. Schreier. Jeffries. Schweikert. McCarthy. Austin Scott. McCarthy. David Scott. Jeffries. Scott of Virginia. Jeffries. Self.
McCarthy.
McCarthy.
Okay, so it's really, depending on Paul Gosar, it's only going to be 7 left from the 20. Could be 8 if Paul Gosar comes back and votes. See, look at them. They love it.
Sessions. McCarthy.
I get a little.
Sewell.
I gotta admit, I'm a little mad,
Jeffries.
but at the same point, I don't know what.
Sherman.
There must have been something very
Jeffries.
valuable that they got, and so you can't
Sherrill.
fault them for that.
Jeffries.
Yeah, there had to be. I'm dying to
Simpson.
know what it was if they're peeling off.
McCarthy.
What?
I assume.
15?
Slatkin.
16?
I assume that's what it
Jeffries.
is. Maybe they just
Smith
got the
of
pressure,
Missouri.
and then I have zero respect for those
McCarthy.
guys.
Well, that could be. Maybe they got absolutely
Smith of
nothing.
Nebraska.
Right.
But they just caved to the pressure. I mean,
Right.
the pressure's real. To just comply,
Smith of
Oh, yeah.
get in
Jersey.
line, do as you're told. It makes you wonder
Smith
if
of
they
Washington.
maybe it was more threats than there
Jeffries.
was anything else. So if we're going to primary you, and
Smucker.
you're not going to be here anymore.
Right.
McCarthy.
Or they're starting to
Sorensen.
bring up the issue or the dirt they
Jeffries.
got on you too. We're gonna
Soto.
go public with this stuff.
Jeffries. Spanberger.
So we're coming up to Victoria Sparks. I have got to
Jeffries.
imagine she's going to vote McCarthy here.
Sparts. McCarthy.
Not shocked there, but I just don't understand what she's been doing, voting present this whole time. It's such a bizarre move. So she technically never voted against McCarthy. She just voted present.
Stansbury.
So the only thing left here is Paul Gosar didn't vote, and so they'll go back at the end to collect the votes. But McCarthy does
Stanton.
not have the needed
Jeffries.
218 votes.
Sauber.
He will now be
McCarthy.
the lead vote, I would imagine.
Steele.
Yeah,
McCarthy.
12.
Stefanik.
Let's see.
McCarthy.
I think
Style.
it all depends on Paul Gosar,
McCarthy.
but I think he'll be at 213.
Stubbe.
So it'll be
McCarthy.
213 to Jeffries, 212.
Stevens.
Hearn with 3, Jordan with
Jeffries.
4. The only exception is Paul Gosar.
Stewart.
So McCarthy could have 214 votes on this one.
Strickland.
Well, we should be talking about the incredible
Jeffries.
sign of unity and the
Strong.
courageousness shown by all these Democrats. They're in lockstep behind Jeffries. It's
Swalwell.
just so impressive.
Well, it's democracy firsthand because democracy is always unanimous, right?
Well, I just think it's hilarious when they got like these Democrats
Jeffries.
on the cable news network saying,
Tenney.
"We are all unified.
know.
Look at us." It's like you're in the minority. Who cares? Like,
Tenadon.
of course, you're all going to vote for the same guy.
Jeffries.
Well, no, it's not, of course, because once again,
Thompson of-
2
Thompson
Senate
of
Republicans
California.
voted for Bobby
Well,
Joe
we're
Champion.
talking Minnesota Republicans. Like, they're the least reliable
Thompson of
politicians on the
Mississippi.
planet.
I know.
Jeffries.
Um,
Thompson
yeah,
of
I
Pennsylvania.
think the other thing that Fox News,
McCarthy.
when they've had their meltdowns this week, it's like, oh, this is so embarrassing. And
McCarthy.
look, the Democrats are unified. This is so
Timmons.
bad for us. I'm like, no, it's
McCarthy.
not. No one's going to think about this next election.
Titus.
No one's going into the election with
Jeffries.
this as the talking point. That's the dumbest
Tlaib.
talking point ever.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter to the American
Jeffries.
people. Honestly, the American people,
Takuda.
most American people probably don't even know this is happening.
Jeffries.
Now, if you're watching this show, you're probably
Tonto.
some bit of a political junkie, right?
Jeffries.
So you care, but most Americans
Torres
don't
of
care about this
California.
stuff.
If you want to talk about real political consequences that
Jeffries.
will be a result of this, it's going to be the establishment primarying these,
Torres
half
of
a
New
dozen
York.
Republicans. That'll
That's
be
right.
the real
Jeffries.
political consequence.
Yes.
Trahan. Jeffries.
Now, what I think, Mort,
Trone.
is on the what's going to happen here
Trone.
is they're going to try to get a follow-up vote.
Turner.
Even though there's 7, maybe
McCarthy.
8 with Paul Gosar, people that are holding up
Underwood.
McCarthy's.
Jeffries.
Well, actually, I shouldn't say
Valadao.
7 or 8 because technically all they need is peel.
McCarthy.
At this point, they need to peel 3 people off.
Van
of
Drew.
that, right? So I think they're going to force
McCarthy.
another vote because there's another pressure here.
Van Dyne.
And we see these at conventions all the
McCarthy.
time, and you'd see them at a legislature. We
Van
got
Orden.
videos of this. You don't want to be
McCarthy.
on that losing side.
Vargas.
And the early
Jeffries.
votes, the
Vasquez.
bigs of the world, the Boberts,
Jeffries.
the Cranes of the
Vesey.
world who have voted
Jeffries.
an opposite way. If they bring up a
Velasquez.
vote right away, they might want to
Jeffries.
get that applause and not
Wagner.
be, hated by the establishment right now.
Wahlberg.
Yeah, I could absolutely see that. It'd be the smart thing to do. I don't think
Waltz.
yesterday they went long, didn't they? They went
They
till
went-
like 6, 7
McCarthy.
o'clock at night or something.
Well, they started with 7th
Wasserman
ballot,
Schultz.
so yeah, they went 5 ballots yesterday.
Jeffries. Waters.
So, what I think is key then, if there still needs to be
Jeffries.
more concessions by McCarthy, what's
Watson
key here
Coleman.
is that the
Jeffries.
7 or 8 Republicans need to be
Weber of Texas.
together and meeting and
McCarthy.
making sure that
Webster of
there's some
Florida.
cover and unity.
McCarthy.
the worst thing for them is to all be sitting in different spots. That's where they really get in on you. And I think you saw that. I think you saw Rosendale after he said Kevin Hearn. good fun. Went back to I think the area where there's a bunch of guys that were still voting the right way.
Williams of Georgia. Jeffries.
Well, you know what's interesting is kind of thinking through this, and I the last 4 years I've been consumed by Minnesota state politics.
Williams
I have not.
of Texas.
A lot of these names I don't even recognize, but someone like a Matt Gaetz. Like if Matt Gaetz wasn't part of this 7 people, I bet this wouldn't even be happening at this point.
I
I think he has the political influence to reassure these guys, look, I'll have your back. Maybe McCarthy won't at election time. Because again, that's all these guys care about is the election time.
Right.
And I know Matt Gaetz, he obviously has a name to raise some money, and I bet he's promising to help protect these people.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. It usually comes down to a leader, right? Somebody willing to do something. And that's what's been lacking in the Minnesota legislature for so long, too.
Zinke.
And I appreciate what you did, Mort. You were a leader. They hated you up at the Capitol, but a lot of things that happened were because of the moves you made. And unfortunately, Democrats had a blue ripple this year, and
The reading clerk will now call
guys
the
like
names
Keith
of the members
Keith
elect
Ellison won your
who did
district.
not answer the
Like,
first
there's no
call
chance.
of the roll.
Keith Ellison wins Shakopee. I tell you, it hurts growing up in Shakopee.
Yeah.
You know, when it was like 9,000 people, and now we're pushing 50,000. To see Keith Ellison
Yep.
win Shakopee just is ridiculous.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, if you ran in your district as a Republican, it was a losing bet, and that was a lot of different districts. You know, like Mark Bashowski would have loved to see up the Capitol.
Oh, yeah.
Keith Ellison won that district.
I should get Dawson a fun little video Michelle even sent me.
All right, so you see McCarthy there. He is now, this is the highest vote count he's had. We're going to wait for Paul Gosar. Paul Gosar, you know, Buck, I've been told, this actually is a factor. So Buck actually is not present.
Patrick Dennis says hi, Mark.
Wait.
Hey, Patrick.
What was that all about?
I didn't hear it.
Kassar. Jeffries.
You're not on the mic. Can't hear you. We're waiting for Paul Gosar. I don't know why that meant. There's Paul Gosar talking to Matt Gaetz, and he's by Rosendale. So
He looks stressed.
he looks stressed. I think Gosar's flipping there.
Gosar.
McCarthy.
McCarthy.
Yeah. Yeah, you could really read that body language.
Yeah,
So it's really
he doesn't
just
look particularly proud of that vote.
So it's down to 7. So I see this playing out one of two ways. The 7 are disciplined here, and McCarthy's really got to make more concessions. I don't think Gaetz has ever voted McCarthy.
Hunt.
Or the other option is they do another vote, and the bigs of the world are and the Boberts cave to the pressure, and that is a real thing. I think you guys have to understand it.
Ogles.
I'd love to see where everyone is right now.
On behalf of my colleagues,
I thought Ogles already voted. He's obviously voting McCarthy.
McCarthy.
I'm sorry, I had already counted his vote. I don't know why I did that. So obviously, that's pretty obvious that he was.
I wish we'd go back and watch. Was it Gosar? Is that his name?
Yeah.
I mean, that was like, if you ever what does a politician look like the moment they sell out? Like that was it right there. That body language, the head dropping, and he's staring at the floor, walking away, kicking rocks.
Well, is it a sellout? That's the question.
Well, it sure as hell looked like it.
It does kind of look like it.
There was
but-
no pride in that vote at all.
Well, yeah, but once again, this is just a big win for the sense that if he's conceding things,
Sanchez.
doing this whole thing was worthwhile.
Yeah, if he got something in return, you would think that he would at least have a look of pride. That,
I
hey,
guess
I got
that's a good
something
point.
for this. Like this was worth it.
Well, maybe
He looked
Gosar is in that
humiliated.
case. You know, he's circled by a lot of the establishment back there. That's why it's important for Gaetz and Rosendale to buddy up with him. But you could kind of tell the body language. it wasn't going to go that way. So right now it's 7. If I'm the establishment, I'm bringing another vote right away.
Who did not answer the call of the roll,
And you could peel off people. This next vote's everything, right? And if they don't move a single person on this next vote, McCarthy then is forced to make more concessions. The other thing that could happen is they could make these final deals by the next vote. All right, so we're going to go into about 10 minutes here. I'm going to take the headset off. About 10 minutes where we're actually not going to get anything. They're going to be maneuvering. But once again, like we always say, is when we watch these guys. No, keep that screen up there, Dawson, because as we watch the plays that they're making, you can kind of learn something here. What I think is critical, Mort, is that these people are unified. They're sitting next to each other. If they really want to hold out, they better sit next to each other, because you see these establishment folks scheming right now. They're figuring out a way to divide and conquer. So it's really important for them to, like you say, there's power in the herd, right?
Yeah, that's probably a 5-chart column right there. 5-column analysis that guy's holding. But okay, who do we pick off next year? Who's the closest coming aboard?
Yeah, I don't think for a second that these well-experienced Washington insiders don't have every little bit of detail down right now. In fact, you're just seeing the stuff out there that we can look at. There's Norman going over and congratulating McCarthy. Yeah, you earned my vote. Love to hear that conversation. Yeah, they've got all the details on these guys, and there's people in the back room, the war room, that know there's still some work to be done. And of course, they're using Tom Emmer, the majority whip, to get these votes. I don't want to be mean-spirited towards the guys that just flipped their vote. I respect and appreciate the 20 people, even if they've now changed their vote, because I believe they've gotten something for it, and it was worthwhile. This whole thing was worthwhile, right? I don't know Kevin McCarthy enough to say that he will definitely be a bad Speaker of the House. What I will say is, if this didn't happen, he for sure would have been a bad Speaker of the House. The fact he has to concede anything suggests this was worthwhile. He would have been not doing that. So I think at this point, it's already a massive win. And so the 7 are probably just waiting to get a better deal. And Matt Gaetz will probably just never vote for McCarthy. And I agree. There's no chance on earth you would have ever voted for Kurt Dowd if he was running for Speaker.
Right,
so there is a chance that you just say, no, this guy is that bad. I have no idea if Kevin McCarthy is as bad as like a Kurt Dowd of the world. But Gaetz certainly seems to believe that.
Yeah, well, I think your point is that there's value in raking these guys over the coals when they're doing things that their constituents, if they knew about it, which is half the battle, is just keeping people informed, which is what my priority was at the Capitol. But someone like Senator Eric Pratt, he had a primary challenger. He loses the endorsement to Natalie Barnes. Like, even though Natalie didn't win at the end of the day, there's still a lesson that's being learned, even though that ultimately it was a loss for that grassroots candidate. But I'd be willing to bet Eric Pratt will vote a lot better this time around. Probably mostly because he's in the minority.
Yeah, because he's in the minority. It's like, yeah, you'll vote now. Well, actually, he might not. It'd be interesting.
Yeah,
he's the kind of guy. He's basically a Democrat. Like,
well, after that endorsing convention, he loses on the first ballot. I think he should know that his delegates are not going to tolerate his continued behavior. So,
yeah,
not that I have crazy high hopes that he's going to become some rock star liberty guy at the Capitol.
He should run for Congress. That's what he should do. That'd be great.
Yeah, that's
he'd be a reliable McCarthy vote.
Right.
One wonders where Tyler Kistner would have been on this one.
I was thinking that on the way over here. And, of course, I hope he would be in that 5, but I'm not so sure. I know he was pretty tight with Emmer, and I'm sure Emmer would probably have swung him over.
Sometimes it's like guys like Kistner. I like Kistner a lot. I've had very limited experience and engagements with him, but they all have been very pleasant. And, of course, he endorsed you, which was not an easy thing to do. We even chatted about how he took some arrows for that in the Republican ranks, but I appreciate the guy. And when they lose, remember what I said to you in 2018 when you lost? Do you remember on election night? Because you had won the endorsement, you won the primary, red wave or blue wave happens, no Republicans were winning that election in the metro area. And do you remember what I said to you that night? I said, well, good, now we can be buddies because, you know, like Mort and I hit things off right away because we're both into winter camping. Like, there's not a lot of winter campers out there.
Oh.
So I was like, this is a guy I'd hang out with all the time in the wilderness. But once you become a legislator, you might be bad. And if you're bad, we're not buddies anymore.
Yeah,
you
it's
know?
just a bad practice to be friends with politicians. Just
Exactly.
Don't do that.
Good thing you never became a politician.
Yeah, exactly.
And I always make this this distinguish between a statesman and a politician. A politician is someone who makes politically calculated decisions. You clearly didn't do that.
I tend to agree with that. I mean, all these guys are all they're fearful of is losing an election, and I think it's pretty clear I didn't operate out of fear of not getting elected.
Right. So they are busy at work. They're smelling blood in the water. They are realizing that they are so close. They just need to pick off a handful of people. Andy Biggs, Lauren Boebert, Eli Crane, Andy Harris, Matt Rosendale. Those are the people, and Gates, and Bob Good. I'm sorry. I don't know why I ran right over those. I am not seeing them show any of those people, which to me suggests C-SPAN's camera guys are idiots, or they're in a different room. There's Biggs and Gates, so I guess, and then Boebert looks like it's to the left of Gates. So there's three of them right there. The other thing that could be happening is there's a bunch right now trying to make deals in the back room. But if I am these guys, I am lockstep together with each one.
Yeah, it's good to see those three sitting there together. So
yeah, but the look on his face
fall?
makes it seem like this is maybe a done deal.
Whose face?
Gates. Yeah. Seems like he's just. Unless the other read is, see, now they pulled Biggs away. See that? See what just happened? Let's get Biggs out of there. All right, now it's those two. It's like the C-SPAN camera operators know what's going on too, right? All right, now let's zoom in because it's only two of them. Oh, man. I mean, no one's going to work on Matt Gates. Eventually, when you become a guy like Gates, it's obviously the Democrats. We see a mask over there. When you become a guy like Matt Gates, which I'm not saying you guys are aligned ideologically because I don't know Matt Gates' record more, but I think he operates a little bit in the way you do, and they just realize they're not going to move you, so they stop working on you.
Yeah, for some reason, lobbyists just never reached out to me.
Yeah, I don't think you ever said lobbyists can't come to your office, right? You didn't say that, did you? They just naturally, they just naturally didn't do it.
Out, so.
There's Eli Crane, and you got Morgan Luttrell talking to him. Ooh, what's that fist bump for?
Yeah. That's Biggs.
Yeah, so Biggs went back. Well, so maybe that was the move, is to go sit with Eli Crane. I really would love to know Morgan Luttrell. That's a guy I got a lot of respect for. That's the brother of Marcus Luttrell. Oh, there's Tom Emmer coming over. And then why would you take the camera? Who gives a crap about Marjorie Taylor Greene? She's shown her irrelevance here. Go back to Tom Emmer, the majority whip, going and talking to Eli Crane and Andy Biggs. Come on, C-SPAN, let's go. Oh, should have sent you there, Dawson. Get live coverage.
I've had to, one of my previous jobs was working for a football team, so I had to record football games. And so this feels like very similar to what they would have to do here.
There's Steve Scalise talking to Rosendale. Doesn't look like Rosendale's come up on board yet. He's pretty bold. Seriously, if you're a legislator from Montana, you better be up there. There's Scalise now talking to Biggs and Crane. Crane doesn't seem like he's budging. I learned about Eli Crane. There's them counting the votes, where they're at. They only need to move right now 3 people. And so if we're looking at body language, this isn't a science, although there is a science behind body language. It doesn't look like Rosendale, Biggs, Boebert, Eli Crane, or Matt Gaetz are moving, which would still hold up this vote. There's Scalise talking to him. I don't know who that is talking in front. He's alone now. That is key. So Biggs is no longer sitting next to him. Rosendale's behind him. You see, Rosendale's got a guy talking to him. Scalise is sitting next to him.
I sent a video to Dawson. It's a 10-second video.
You got it, Dawson? Go ahead, pop it up.
I need to get my headphones back on, then I gotta hit the road here. This was sent to me yesterday by Michelle Even. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think you will too.
We love Michelle. Gotta get her on the show. I have no idea what this video is.
Oh, good. I was wondering if she sent it to you.
No. Apparently I'm not in the inner circle anymore. Jeez, Michelle.
Oh, I know what it is.
Even you know what it is, huh?
Yeah, I talked to her yesterday. I didn't see the video, but she told me.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I'm a nobody now.
Await the official tally from the House clerk. The unofficial numbers, Kevin McCarthy with
I would say they're going to either... Okay, let's see. Oh, that looks like Tabke there. Slime ball.
I just had to take your picture that you're down here. It's amazing how you actually scammed your way back into a legislative seat, Brad. Well done.
Nobody does what Michelle's willing to do.
Yeah, no one does. Well, he doesn't care if he scammed his way back. That guy's such a sleazebag.
Yeah, he is.
Unbelievable. The fact that guys like that can even win.
Well, I got ice fishing calling my name here.
Well, I appreciate you. We're going to stay live, and we'll have Bridget read comments until we do that. Let's get back there. So that's Rosendale talking to some establishment. I appreciate you joining us, Mort. I know this is a long podcast, but I think what we're going to see here is if they can't whip these votes, they're either going to try one more vote to get the pressure going, or and then what they'll do is they'll adjourn at some point, and they might adjourn till tonight. You know, it's also that's another thing. Don't forget, when they're staring down like a weekend, that's pressure on the legislator. So we appreciate you very much joining us, Mort. Good luck fishing. Catch one.
Just one.
All right, so there's Rosendale still chatting with everybody. Crane by himself. Lots of commotion. It's a lot easier when there's only 7. And remember, they only need and there's Zinke coming over. So we got the Western guys. Which these guys got the Tridents, Navy SEALs. How many Navy SEALs are there in the Congress? 4 or something like that? There's a bunch. For some reason, the SEALs like Crane. What is Eli Crane's background? I literally do not know this. Why don't you read a comment here as I'm looking this up?
Yeah.
Because I'm curious why all the guys that are Navy SEALs. Is this a tactic to get the Navy SEALs? They're the most intimidating guys? Because Morgan Luttrell was over there. I don't know who those guys are. Oh, and Zinke is, right? Go ahead.
There was a comment earlier from Mark Anderson, and he says that he introduced the amendment to repeal MNsure, and the GOP House majority leadership got upset with him, and he cannot imagine being denied the opportunity to offer amendments.
Who did that?
Mark Anderson.
Oh, gotcha. Yep.
Yeah.
Mark used to serve in the legislature. Now they're talking to Gates. Eli Crane was a Navy SEAL. That is exactly why that's happening. Crane served in the United States Navy SEALs and co-founded Bottle Breacher, a company that manufactures bottle openers made of .50 caliber shell casings. Ew, I didn't know that. Well, I gotta learn more about these guys. Really liking this Crane guy, and he's brand spanking new. This is he's a member elect. He's not even a representative yet. It says assumed office January 3rd of 2023. He actually hasn't assumed office yet. They have not sworn in. Eli Crane. So that's why Zinke is talking to him, right? So Ryan Zinke, former Secretary of the Interior, also a member of the Montana delegation, which I think they only have 2 representatives, although they're probably getting a lot more people now in Montana. So I don't know if they picked up an electoral vote or not. Zinke was a Navy SEAL, so I'm just going to Google this real quick. How many Navy SEALs are in Congress? Because my count right now is there's at least 5.
That's cool.
Here are the 5 SEALs running for Congress. Brady Duke, Derek Van Orden, Eli Crane, Morgan Luttrell, Ryan Zinke.
Are they all new?
Well, obviously, no, not all of them are new. Zinke obviously was, has been around watching. He was the, I think he was a congressman. Then he became the Secretary of Interior.
Oh, yeah. You said.
So those were people running. I'm curious how many are actually in, though. What's that? Oh, he's got a phone call, it looks like. Hey, does Mort forget about his 1 o'clock meeting? That's so funny, Mort. Mort! Hey, Mort! Let him know about his 1 o'clock meeting. Oh, is that canceled now? That's the thing about Mort is he just does what he wants to do.
I know.
He's going to meet someone here at 1 o'clock, so
Oh.
maybe that's been canceled.
To be fair, ice fishing sounds pretty good.
Yeah, it does. Do you ice fish, Dawson?
When I was younger, yeah. I have no time now. I'd love to, but just don't get the chance.
Oh, I haven't told you about my idea. Oh, I totally forgot about this. So I have all those fresh ideas as we started January 1st about things to do with the studio.
Yep.
One of them is ice fishing interviews. So I want to actually bring you out on the ice, and we're going to fish as I'm talking to some people.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we'll have a more clever name than ice fishing interviews, although it doesn't sound terrible.
Mm-mm.
Right?
No, it sounds fun.
There you go. Well, look, Bridget says it's fun. She'll even be out there.
I'll talk a little more if I'm out in the ice.
Okay.
I wanna make it. It sounds like an iceberg, like that YouTube trend of like this person iceberg. You can make a joke out of that.
I don't know what your joke is out of that, but I know what you're talking about. That meme.
Mm-hmm. Like for your title. I don't know.
I see. All right, Bridget, let's read some more comments here. We're still waiting.
This one was directed to Mort, but I'm sure you can answer this. So it says, what were your thoughts on the events at State in St. Cloud? Does the Minnesota GOP leadership have any integrity or our best interests? Which I think you could answer probably pretty well.
Does
the Minnesota GOP have any integrity?
I mean, are they just
going
to throw softball? Are they just going to throw these softballs at me here? Like, no, of course not.
Yeah.
But the Inman GOP is interesting. When you say the Inman GOP, what are you referring to? David Hand, the leadership team? No, these guys are sellouts. These guys are pro-establishment. They're adversaries to us. They don't need to be adversaries because, quite frankly, we agree with the Republican Party platform. They don't.
Mm-hmm.
They're the Kevin McCarthy types of the world. But the Inman GOP is full of delegates, and there's lots of really good delegates there. And they're also full of BPOU leaders, they call them, leaders of local parties, and some of those people are really good. So when you say the GOP, it's hard to describe what that is. So I'd really have to look at what exactly.
Well, actually, he did say, does the Minnesota GOP leadership have any integrity?
Well, and if you're just referring to like the leadership.
Yeah, I guess like the top guys.
I mean, like they're led by a really, I consider him just a bad man at this time. Yeah. And it's ridiculous that they even reelected David Hand, although he didn't really have any competition, but they reelected the guy, and he's a big loser. Like, they lost everything. So why would you get reelected if you lost everything? And this guy spit on the grassroots. This guy has not intervened in conventions that were run poorly by other leadership, bad leadership. Sends out talking points completely undermining the pro-life movement. So there's Good and Gates talking. I mean, obviously stuff are happening here. I don't know who can carry forward the message for the establishment on what they're willing to give these guys? I don't know why I can't just find it on Google how many SEALs are in Congress. I can find how many were running. Maybe if I type in Navy SEAL congressman. I mean, Dan Crenshaw, obviously everyone knows him. Well, it seems like that other guy. I just don't know who that guy is. And we're not obviously Washington, D.C. insiders, so we just don't know a lot of these guys. There's Biggs and Emmer talking. Once again, Tom Emmer of Congressional District 6 in Minnesota. He is the majority whip. His job to go whip those votes for Kevin McCarthy. Let's read some more comments here, Bridget.
We have one from Rumble. Billy says, keep an eye on the Supreme Court and the Brunson case today, too. I don't know much about
What does that mean?
I don't know.
Like, how do we keep an eye on it? They don't. Are they teasing that they're going to release something? I don't know the story.
I don't know.
Of course, why would we know the story? This is the big news story politically. U.S. Supreme Court. Sotomayor felt shocked after U.S. Supreme Court abortion decision. Oh, that's old news. What? Are you able to ask what he's referring to? I'm just really in the dark on this one.
I can ask him.
Yeah. See something about clean water rules. Yeah, usually they takes them a while to release a decision, and they don't really let you know when they're going to do that. And if there's a hearing today, well, it's moot because it's not like it's public, so we don't know how that goes. I guess
actually, Dawson, I'm actually logged in as somebody else. Dawson, you want to type? Ask him what he's referring to on Rumble.
Well, you know what? He's listening. You don't need to type.
That's true. If he's
why are we
listening.
doing that? Let's act like we know what's going on
Well, that
here.
was an hour ago, so he may not be listening.
Oh, okay. Well, then it's why are we answering it?
Because he asked.
If we don't have retention, you don't get the luxury of the response. Who was that again?
It was just the name was Billy22 on
Rumble. Billy22. Just clarify what you're referring to. We're just a little bit in the dark on that.
Who is the guy with the beard?
I have
Big
wondered
beard.
that same question. You're talking about this. He's not
He was
on
just on the
screen
screen
right
before.
now. Yeah. I've gotten to know the personalities a lot more. And, of course, this is the 118th Congress. We don't know a lot of these personalities because they're new.
Oh,
but we've gotten to learn a lot of new personalities because of this battle. We don't spend much time worrying about U.S. Congress because of the very reason that we're here today is it's just usually routine. It's the same old stuff. It's the status quo. They spend money we don't have. And so this is actually shaking things up. And so it's forcing us to actually care and pay attention to the U.S. Congress. And the way I look at it is it's already a win because I believe there's been some concessions to get those 13 people. Nope, not 13. Yeah, 13 people to come Kevin McCarthy's way. Sip here.
It is interesting how someone like Jim Jordan and Marjorie Taylor Greene are so supportive of McCarthy. Like they just want to get it done.
Yeah, I mean, Jim Jordan, you can understand his point. Like, he's going to be the head of the Judiciary Committee. That's exciting. So
yeah.
He's like, I want to get cracking. I want to get moving on this stuff. I want to investigate the Bidens.
That's true. That is what Marjorie Taylor keeps saying, too.
Yeah. Well, I know, but that's such a dumb talking point. Hers is like, well, Kevin McCarthy has decided or will let us investigate the Bidens. Like any Republican really is that's going to win is going to let you do that. It'd be suicide if they stopped that from happening. There's so many tactics that could be used here. They say McCarthy picks up 14 GOP votes. And, okay, And the reason I said 13 there was because there was a present vote from Victoria Spartz, who then jumped and went to McCarthy. So it wasn't a number that detract from the alternative of McCarthy. It was just someone that went from present back to McCarthy. And for whatever reason, I don't know what Victoria Spartz' play was on that. It was bizarre.
The House floor members going in and out of the chamber and reporters catching them as they go.
I didn't realize the same scenario played out. I was listening to, I think, Michael Knowles, and he said in 2015, he's like, I don't know why people are shocked about this. The exact same thing with the exact same person.
What played out?
This whole, like, taking forever to get a speaker, and it was with Kevin McCarthy.
No, this has never happened. This is.
I don't know what he was referring to this, though.
Maybe that internally into the conference there was some issues, but yeah, this hasn't happened. This hasn't happened since 1923, as I was saying to someone. We have never been able to watch this before because there wasn't TV.
Oh,
when this
yeah,
happened.
that's true.
In fact, I was thinking about this. I don't think anyone living has actually watched this happen before. And the reason being is it's 100 years ago, right? So a baby's not on the U.S. House floor 100 years ago. So you'd imagine anyone who's on the House floor is probably at least 20.
Yeah.
So that means you would have to have someone that's 120 years old. There's only a handful of people that old. And they would, the likelihood that they were in the U.S. Congress that day is rare. So literally no one living today on Earth has actually watched this.
Did you say 120 years old?
Well, I'm just saying that.
'Cause I'm pretty sure, no, on the news I saw, I think it was in the U.S., the oldest lady, maybe it's the oldest lady in the U.S., 115, just passed away.
Okay.
So
well, then
I don't even know if anybody's alive at 120.
So then, in other words, if this happened 100 years ago, it basically happened 99 years ago, because I think it was like in December or something like that of 2023. But let's just use 100. If the oldest person is 115 that just passed away, that means she would have been 15 years old on the U.S. House floor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why would she have been on the U.S. House floor at 15? That wouldn't even make sense, right? Like, I don't think you could. There's not like high school interns up there, right? Unless Washington D.C.'s got a program, or some Virginia school's got a program. So that'd be it. It'd be like some like high school intern. Why would a 15-year-old? I guess it could be a family member going there.
Nathan says Maxine Waters and Pelosi were there.
Oh man.
They probably were.
They probably were.
Born there.
Oh, they are dinosaurs for sure. Yeah, I'm just going to go on a limb and say no one living today has ever seen this play out, because there was no TV. And so you actually, if you watched it play out, you would have had to been on the floor. And then the only time it's gone this long, the last time it's gone this long, it was in 1859, I believe. It was right before the Civil War. So you're just not. It's historic. That's why we've done, 4 days of the Truth Hurts show in a row? Like, this is huge. And once again, a great play. Fox News has got this thing so wrong, because what's going to happen is we're going to get better deals in the U.S. Congress. Congress is broken. So the people that are hating on the Gateses of the world for doing this literally say, no, everything's fine up here. Let's just bring up the same old guy, no changes. You're obstructionist. It's like, I think we better take a week to sort this out.
Somebody on Rumble says bring back Doug Collins as speaker. He left Congress to campaign as governor and lost. He fought like a bear for Trump and would make a great speaker. But I don't know who Doug Collins is.
That name sounds familiar. I can't think of that. I mean, literally, the best name I've heard out there is Trump. How great would that be?
That would be so funny.
Right? I mean, it'd just be... This is why I was such a big fan of Donald Trump running for office. And I was not a big fan of him because, quite frankly, he was a Democrat. He's a he more aligns, obviously, with the Republican Party these days, but he's not like some strong conservative, clearly. He voted for all those big spending bills, signed all those big spending bills.
There will be a 13th round of voting for Speaker. Some news on what might happen if there is.
Turn it up.
Olivia Beavers of Politico reporting via Twitter that it would be James Comer of Kentucky who would nominate Kevin McCarthy as Speaker in the next round. James Comer, who is set to be the chairman of the Oversight Committee, the lead investigative
big
committee
news story. James
on
Comer, like no one
Capitol Hill.
cares.
Again,
So we're going to get the official tally here. But I do agree with them. It's probably going to go to another round. Let's turn up the volume. We're going to have
Kevin McCarthy in that
announcement.
Round. 14 votes moving in his favor. We're waiting, though, for the official tally from the clerk. You're watching live coverage on C-SPAN.
We don't know what's going to happen here, but it does sound like there's going to be a 13th vote, a 13th ballot. I'm actually operating our spreadsheet today, so I'm going to go ahead and make sure this gets updated. Just for historic purposes, right? So the big question is, has McCarthy finally given what these people want? You know, I would imagine the establishment doesn't want to make any more concessions. They figure they could work these guys over. These are the top tier politicians, and that's not a compliment. They are the best political maneuvers on the planet. So what they're doing is they're putting the screws to those people. We've shown you they want to divide and conquer. That's one of their tactics. Make sure these guys get separated. It's very important that those guys sit as a block together. In the case of Eli Crane, he's got a bunch of his buddy Navy SEALs coming over, trying to work with them. You know, as a guy that was in the military, there's a code. There's a brotherhood. And without knowing the deals, I'd argue that the Brotherhood's probably been on the wrong side because the majority of them are not. You got guys like Dan Crenshaw, which, my God, like, how do you look at this guy and not say this guy's just terrible? Calling these guys terrorists and enemies. Like, that's a ridiculous statement.
Was he referring to the Republicans that wouldn't vote for McCarthy?
Correct.
That's so crazy.
Of note, Jake Tapper of CNN reporting that Democratic Congressman David Trone of Maryland has returned to the House. He missed that 12th ballot for Speaker, and Democrats saying this will bring the number needed to win up by 1 for Kevin McCarthy. The number needed to win officially 217.
That's actually an
we'll
important
see if David
detail
Trone
there.
Does in fact vote in the next round, or if there is in fact a 13th round of voting. It all will happen after the House Clerk makes the 12th round
At
tally
this point,
official, and we'll see.
They could really just go to the Democrats and say, "Hey, don't show up."
There could be
like,
a motion for
up,
adjournment. There could be a push for a 13th round.
Well, if Democrats don't show up, then it's giving McCarthy the vote. So their incentive would be that they got something from it, right?
Right.
Or they just want to go home. I think these Democrats want to see this painful process continue on. There is another thing here, though. The Democrats are afraid the deals that get cut, meaning they're in opposition to some common sense reforms, and so they are like, well, geez, let's sink this thing right now, or let's get this thing across the finish line so that the conservatives don't get more of a deal. Oh, and McCarthy might have cut that deal with them too. Like, hey guys, listen, I'm gonna have to give them these bad things. That's very possible. He goes over to Democrats. Listen, I'm about to give them these things. You guys can also vote president, because McCarthy wants to win without these guys having to concede to these guys. He's obviously had to concede a lot already, so we assume either that or it's the other side he's threatening. Don't for a second think that doesn't happen.
Yeah, it seems more likely to try to appeal to the ones that are not conceding to go to the opposing team.
Yeah. I do sometimes wonder how much the majority party controls the clerk here, or is it they're really at the mercy of when this person speaks? Because they might need another 5 minutes, you know? Here we go. And so what they were referring to is the strength was at 432, which meant that the actual winner would just need 217 votes. Ken Buck has apparently not been there today. And so there's a Democrat that wasn't as well.
Cast is 431.
No, I'm wrong. 431.
The Honorable Kevin McCarthy of the state of California has received 213.
And he needed 217. If there's a strength of 431, he needs 217. That number will probably go back up, though, here. But that is significant. So right now he's 4 away. And this is the first time McCarthy has led.
The Honorable Hakeem Jeffries of the state of New York has received 211. The Honorable Jim Jordan of the state of Ohio has received 4. The Honorable Kevin Hearn of the state of Oklahoma has received 3.
No applause whatsoever.
No member-elect having received a majority of the votes cast, the Speaker has not been elected. For what purpose does the gentleman from Kentucky rise?
I rise on behalf of the Republican Party to nominate Kevin McCarthy for Speaker.
All right, so we do have a 13th ballot, and this will be everything. We don't know how it's going to go. You would hope, I think we've laid out the scenarios that we think could be it. There's been enough concessions now where it gets
the gentleman is recognized.
Enough members over.
For the past 2 years,
that's one option.
Democrat
Another option is they've done nothing and they just want the pressure up.
Any oversight
and that's very possible that they put enough pressure on these holdouts.
Americans are facing historic inflation
by just,
skyrocketing energy costs,
you can't ignore the fact that when you're standing
history,
out and you're against a big swath of people going in an opposite direction, it's tough to resist that. So that could be another route. And then another route is they reached over and got the Democrats, or the Democrats did this organically, saying, well, we don't want any concessions to these far-right members. And so they're like, all right, let's just not have a certain faction of our people vote. So that's another possibility. So those are the big 3 things I could see. The other thing that could happen is those 7 are really strongly against McCarthy, and this ballot won't make a difference.
Waste and fraud in the unemployment insurance.
At this point, and we're going to not cover every ballot, I think what you're going to see is a Speaker of the House today. That's what I'm thinking is going to happen.
Stimulus money,
we'll know a lot after this next vote.
But yet, there has not been a
I don't see them adjourning.
In the House,
I don't see that happening. And right now, it's important to note that the number is 217. Even if this Democrat who's gone today comes back, that's 431. So it'd go up to 432. The majority is 217. So the threshold is much smaller right now.
The Border Patrol has become the
so with the threshold of 217, McCarthy only needs 4 more votes. And Ken Buck, who's been a reliable vote, isn't there. But if he comes back, then it actually moves it up to 218 needed. So right now McCarthy's 4 votes away from getting the speakership.
In our great nation.
And there's 7 that have been strongly against him. In other words, all they need is 4 of these members to not buckle, so to speak. And when you look at the list, Matt Gaetz, Andy Biggs, Lauren Boebert,
How many Americans were left behind?
Andy Harris, Bob Good. I
The
mean,
origination of
boy,
COVID-19.
McCarthy
We
would have
all
given a lot to get those guys over. Let's go to read some more comments here. I don't think we're going to learn anything from the speech. I'm going to take these headsets off here.
We mostly just have True Liberty put a link in there.
What did True Liberty link to?
It's a link to a bunch of memes with
Why do I even ask that question? What did True Liberty do? Of course he put in a bunch of memes.
Yeah. Other than that, it's not.
Do you know you just made his day by saying, hey, True Liberty put a bunch of memes in the comment section? If True Liberty, if you are watching, I want to know what you would be doing on the House floor right now. Okay? That's my question. We want to know if you are True Liberty. Or if you're more True Liberty than Thomas Massey, so to speak. The other thing that's going to be interesting is who gives a crap what James Comer says and who gives a crap about whoever's endorsing Hakeem Jeffries. What's really going to be fascinating is what is Matt Gaetz going to do here?
You think he'd change? I can't imagine he'd change.
Well, there's a chance they don't nominate anyone. Or they nominate one person. They all coalesce behind one person. Or they nominate nothing. No one. And they just, I always thought about, like, if I was ever a congressman, obviously I'm not going to vote for these establishment hacks. I would at least just vote for someone else. I wouldn't vote for that person. Worst case, you just vote for president. But you vote for someone you believe in. And unfortunately, in the U.S. Congress, that might have to be yourself.
Gosh,
I always thought, like, would I just vote for myself? Because I don't know if I trust
Has anyone done that in this yet?
Well, clearly Donalds has done it.
Oh, he did?
Byron Donalds has voted for himself. Now, he was nominated. Byron Donalds might be the only guy who's actually voted for himself, now that I think about it, because Jim Jordan and Kevin Hearn have not split ranks at all. It's amazing it's 1 o'clock already.
I know.
Is our 1 o'clock not happening? No idea?
I have not heard from anybody.
Okay. Okay.
We have one YouTube comment, and they say, I hope this keeps up. I don't want McCarthy as speaker as long as it takes.
Yeah, I will have to say this. It looks like McCarthy will be speaker, okay? Having 20 against you is a big, important thing. He needs 4 more votes. That should be very achievable by either working with the Democrats, the pressure on the holdout Republicans, or by conceding. And let's just hope and pray that Kevin McCarthy concedes more to these conservatives. He's had to concede at this point something of relevance, and it's a shame that we don't know what that deal is. And I would imagine that it's just the news is slow to come. It's the right of the American people to know what that deal is, right? It's important stuff. But at this point, we couldn't. If anyone's got it, I mean, I'm trying to do this on the fly. Obviously, we're running a studio, so we just need a guy that can surf the web on our show. We don't have that. So, unfortunately, if you guys have the chance to find out where this deal is located, please let us know.
Speaking of other fun news, Rumble actually is coming out with a big update that's attacking censorship even further. So
what do you know about that? I don't know.
Absolutely nothing.
Oh, nothing.
But there have been rumors spreading around that, or right now there's a Rumble video going on with the CEO, and he's talking about it. I'll have to look into that after this.
Gotcha. Have we cleared all comments at this point?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, have you read some of the Rumble live chats? I've got some. of them
I stick on the comments. I always forget there's 2 places to.
Yeah, I don't know why Rumble does that. It's very weird. Jacqueline says, bring back Doug Collins as speaker. He left Congress.
We did talk about that.
Yeah, I did read that.
You did read that one?
Yeah.
McCarthy will win with the illusion that they're... Okay, Mark 2112. McCarthy will win with the illusion that there was a chance he wouldn't.
I mean, at this point, I don't... There is a chance that these 7, and really all it needs to be 4, but 7 stay disciplined, won't vote for McCarthy at all. Matt Gaetz has made that statement that he won't. Then yes, the Republican conference is going to have to find another person, right?
I'm surprised. Like, why wouldn't Democrats just not vote? Like, don't they want him? It seems like it would be easy for them just to be like, okay, certain number of us aren't going to vote, and then it's done.
But then they get McCarthy. That's the problem.
Yeah, but don't they kind of want him?
I mean, I can't imagine they would at all want a Republican, someone in leader. Well, that's a good question. I don't know how to answer that. There's certain Republicans I think they would like better. Maybe they think McCarthy's bad. I don't know.
Huh.
Maybe they wouldn't do it because McCarthy is too. It would be bad for them with their constituents. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
Like,
I can see,
imagine there's establishment Republicans, and they really don't dislike Pelosi, but they would be raked over the coals if they did that with Pelosi. So, she want to come on? You want to come on? Doesn't want to come on set? Okay. So after the Democrats get done speaking, we'll learn a lot here on if Matt Gaetz or somebody else is going to nominate someone. If they don't, it could be a deal that's been struck, or they just don't want to nominate someone. They're just going to vote for someone else. Once again, you don't have to nominate someone. You could literally vote for anyone.
True Liberty answered your question. He said, what do you think I'd be doing if I were on the House floor right now?
No,
Trolling, running for speaker, cocaine, all of the above. You have to choose.
Keep it PG rated.
Yeah.
All the above. Trolling is for sure. He would definitely be trolling.
He is the king of trolling.
No, he's not.
Who is?
I think at this point that title's got to go to Elon Musk.
Oh, okay. Well.
But Michael Malice might deserve a lot of credit for that. He might deserve that title. But of course, Elon Musk is just.
Oh, I know.
You know, it's so funny that we're at a spot where our former president and the wealthiest man on the planet are the best trolls.
I know.
They do have the money to troll. That's a fair point. If you got just an ungodly amount of money, like what is wealth even to Elon Musk, right? It's not like he's got. You know, it's just funny that old Scrooge McDuck, not Scrooge McDuck. Well, that was his name. What the hell was that show called?
DuckTales?
DuckTales. It was Scrooge McDuck, isn't that his name?
Yeah, that's the uncle.
Yeah, and he had that big tower with coins, gold coins, you assume they were.
Yep.
That's not what wealthy people do. They don't have stacks of cash sitting around. It's all, like, Elon Musk's wealth is not realized. I mean, I don't think he's making a dime from Twitter. It's not like Twitter is even paying him a salary, right? So it's all equity, right? Until he actually sells stocks, which he did, and paid the largest tax bill ever, and then dumps that money into buying Twitter, so it's just an equity. What is wealth to these guys, right? So, yes, if you just don't have to worry about the bare necessities, why not?
Could you imagine?
I can't even imagine that. What I always wonder is what would motivate Kevin McCarthy to keep his promises or his deals that he strikes people? Like,
that's a fair point.
Yeah, because when Mort was talking about potentially doing that, you know, if we had the majority here, I was like, well, what's going to make Kurt out, if it was Kurt, follow through with any of these promises?
Right. Yeah, these promises from a politician aren't that important.
Because the worst they can probably face is backlash.
Yeah.
And if they don't care about who's backlashing them, then it doesn't matter.
I guess the question is, does he lose the ability to lead the caucus, or the conference, they call it out there, because he made these deals and then he backed out on it? How many of these 200 lemmings, I'll call them that, but I shouldn't call them all that, because there's various reasons why they're choosing McCarthy in those early votes, but how many of them are irate because he broke those promises?
Yeah.
And is it even a majority? That's the question. You know, you would assume that Thomas Massey's of the world would be like, well, you made these deals, you should keep them, right? But you also could think the Dan Crenshaws. Who cares what deal they made? Those guys were terrorists.
I know.
Dan Crenshaw should be the biggest loser from this thing. My God. Of course, he won't value it that way because he's gotten the good graces of the establishment. He'll probably get his good assignments from it. All right, let's turn up the volume. We'll learn something right here about what they do. And then we're going to stop our live coverage after if the vote gets held up here.
The reading clerk will call the roll.
Okay, so either, like we said, since they're not nominating someone, that just means that either the bigs of the world are gonna they're gonna vote for somebody without nomination, which they can, or they've come to some kind of deal. I would imagine if there's a deal, Gates and maybe Boebert, but Gates for sure is the only one that doesn't vote for McCarthy.
Jeffries.
So we'll learn right away with Biggs. If
Adderholt.
Biggs doesn't vote for McCarthy, it's an interesting thing.
Adderholt.
But with our current count, we have to go all the way down to
Jeffries.
Bob Good. So we'd be in the G's before we learn
Alford.
if this thing gets extended.
McCarthy. Allen.
Are you having fun yet?
Yeah, it is interesting, actually. I haven't really followed this
Allred.
much, but I probably got the
Jeffries.
most interesting day.
Amadei. Amadei.
I can't believe it's already one.
Armstrong.
It's almost
Oh, I
1:15.
know.
McCarthy. Arrington.
Is she fine?
Arrington.
We'll wrap up after.
Yeah,
Auchincloss.
she's pushing it off for
Jeffries.
Monday.
She took off already?
Babbitt.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
McCarthy.
It's showbiz.
Bacon.
It's
it is showbiz. That's
McCarthy.
right.
what you gonna do.
We're in showbiz.
Baird. McCarthy.
I didn't plan on this happening this week.
Alderson.
Honestly, up to this Tuesday, I thought, is this really happening?
Alderson.
It seems like Gates is going to put up a little stink.
Ballant.
And then it seemed, as we were
Jeffries.
coming into Tuesday, that there is actually a
Banks.
thing. There's a faction of 5. That seemed
McCarthy.
pretty obvious.
Farr.
And then it was like 20, and like, oh, I think the original
McCarthy.
vote was 19. It's like, oh, that's very
Farragut.
interesting.
Jeffries.
That's a lot. And then you just assume by day 2 they were going to peel off, and they didn't. You're like, wow, there is something going on here.
McCarthy.
Do you think that they got
Beatty.
the point they were trying to make across?
I think they did a very good job getting the point across. It really, they have to start
Jeffries.
talking about the deal that they got.
Bentz.
If they don't do that, then it's a useless
McCarthy.
thing. Then you
Barra.
look like just a bunch of weak politicians who
Jeffries.
bent over backwards for the
Bergman.
establishment.
McCarthy. Byer. Jeffries.
And Gates would probably say, all right, so
Nice.
we got better deals, but I didn't vote for him.
McCarthy.
Right, here you go.
Biggs.
Jordan. So he stayed Jordan. Next up would be Lauren Boebert. We assume Dan Bishop's going to
Bilirakis.
remain.
Bilirakis. McCarthy.
People are piping in on
Bishop
YouTube.
of
Are we going to stay
Georgia.
positive after this, no matter the outcome?
Jeffries.
Yeah,
Bishop
I mean,
of North Carolina. McCarthy.
you would imagine that there's a
Blumenauer.
good reason these guys moved over at this point. Okay?
Jeffries.
And so that's why I'm already pretty positive. Like I said, as we started the show, this is
Jeffries.
already a win, right? It's a massive win. It's
Boebert.
brought attention to this thing. It showed.
Jordan.
So she didn't vote for Hearn on that one, but that's irrelevant.
Bonamici.
So they only need 2 more. Gates is one of them.
Jeffries.
Rosendale, good. I mean, I think once again,
Bost.
you don't have the votes here.
McCarthy. Bowman. Jeffries.
Because I assume
Boyle of
Buck is still not
Pennsylvania.
at the Capitol. I think Buck had
Jeffries.
a medical appointment.
Burkeen. McCarthy. Brown. Jeffries. Brownlee. Jeffries. Buchanan. McCarthy.
It's kind of interesting that they're not
Buck.
clapping for Burkeen and Bishop, though. You would
Buck.
think they would do that to once again reemphasize.
Bouchon.
See, I don't think Buck is there, so
McCarthy.
that makes the number
Bazinski.
of the majority needed is 217.
Burchett.
But that's which
McCarthy.
would generally
Burgess.
McCarthy.
which would generally be
Burleson.
a good thing for McCarthy.
McCarthy.
However, it's taken a vote away from him.
Bush. Jeffries. Calvert. McCarthy. Kamek. McCarthy. Caraveo. Jeffries.
And I love how they're showing some of the
Carvajal.
original 20, because I don't think you would see any of these guys switch back at this point, like
Cardenas.
Michael Cloud or Andrew Clyde.
Jeffries.
Eli Crane would be the other one that I think.
Carried.
I mean, I think Eli Crane will tell us
McCarthy.
if Crane remains
Carl.
a vote for Jordan or Hearn.
McCarthy.
McCarthy won't get it on this one.
Carson. Jeffries.
And if Crane comes on
Carter
board,
of Georgia.
was it the fact that his
McCarthy.
brothers in the Navy SEALs
Carter
came
of
over and started
Louisiana.
working on him?
Jeffries.
Was it that he got a
Carter of
deal from
Texas.
this? A deal for the American people,
McCarthy.
hopefully not personally.
Cartwright. Jeffries. Kassar. Jeffries. Case. Jeffries. Caston. Jeffries. Castor of Florida. Jeffries. Castro of Texas. Jeffries.
Do they have seats in here, or they just pick whatever
Chavez
they want?
DeRemer.
They don't have signed seats.
McCarthy.
It's rare that they're all sitting there anyhow. It's got to be some
Sherfullis McCormick.
major thing going on, or a State
Jeffries.
of a Union address.
Chu. Jeffries.
I mean, look, they only have
Cicilline.
so much table
Jeffries.
positions. Like, the Minnesota
Siscomani.
legislature, everyone's got a desk at a table, right?
McCarthy.
You
Clark
see-
of Massachusetts.
Now, they're way different. They have a lot
Jeffries.
of staff, and they've
Clark of New York.
got a big office.
Jeffries.
You'd be very jealous
Yeah.
of their office.
Cleaver.
And most of these guys live in their
Jeffries.
offices. A lot of people don't know that, but
Really?
well, imagine you're on a. No, I'm not trying to sound elitist, like,
Klein.
because they make like 180,000 a year, 190,000 a
Cloud.
year. It's not bad, but that's not good
McCarthy.
in Washington D.C. Washington D.C. is
Clyburn.
like one of the most expensive places on the planet to
Jeffries.
live. Like a small home.
Clyde. McCarthy.
Politicians just
Cohen.
got to talk, don't they? Crane's the big one coming up. I'll finish
Jeffries.
my comment about homes in D.C.
You guys reading the newspaper?
Eli Crane.
Cole.
Eli Crane will
McCarthy.
be the first potential
Collins.
vote that would go McCarthy
McCarthy.
here. It'll be really interesting to see it. I'm
Comer.
learning a lot about this guy.
McCarthy. Connolly. Jeffries. Correa. Correa. Costa. Jeffries. Courtney. Jeffries. Craig. Jeffries.
There he
Crane.
is.
Jordan.
Jordan. There you go.
Nice.
Wow. Respect. All right, so
Crawford.
Kevin McCarthy will not win this one because
McCarthy.
we know Matt Gaetz's vote. We'll stick around to at
Crenshaw.
least Bob Good, just to make sure that he's
McCarthy.
on board. Andy Harris has also been
Crockett.
strong. I think by the time you get to Andy Harris, you already
Jeffries.
know that there's a coalition of 6. I think after
Crow.
Harris,
Jeffries.
yeah, it's just Rosendale. Rosendale's been
Cuellar.
pretty strong. So this
Jeffries.
ballot will not deliver
Curtis.
the votes needed for McCarthy. He needs
McCarthy.
217.
Davids
It
of
just
Kansas.
takes 4 others, unless Ken
Jeffries.
Buck comes back, but I believe he's got a
Davidson.
medical reason he's not there. At least that was reported by, I think,
McCarthy.
C-SPAN.
Davis of Illinois.
They won't have the votes needed.
Jeffries.
Test depth comes in on
Davis of North Carolina.
Rumble and says McCarthy is a
Jeffries.
rhino. Rhinos are Democrats.
Dean of
Nothing will change.
Pennsylvania.
Can we just kick them all out and start over?
Jeffries.
Well, something's changed,
Yes.
right? You assume that the reason these guys came on
Jeffries.
board is because
Dela Cruz.
something's changed. He's conceded, right? Listen,
McCarthy.
Democrats can
Delora.
change. We forced Governor
Jeffries.
Walz to sign his own end of emergency
Delfino.
powers. You can
Jeffries.
change even Democrats. They don't want to come
DeLuzio.
along with stuff. But when the will of the
Jeffries.
people is one way, the constituents say
DeSaulnier.
something, then they
Jeffries.
will come on board. Don't think any of these guys have
Desjardins.
these hard-held
McCarthy.
principles. They've got to answer
Diaz-Bazito.
basically to the will of the people.
McCarthy.
The reason they get away with most stuff is the will of
Diaz-Balart.
people are gone. This is the other beauty of this move. It actually brings this attention
Diaz
to
Balart.
Washington, D.C. If this didn't happen, people would just
Dingell.
not be paying attention, and there would be no pressure on changing
Doggett.
things at the start, which is when it needs to change.
Jeffries. Donalds. Donalds. Duarte.
I don't think
McCarthy.
there's anything to look at in terms of
Duncan.
Donald's not voting there, because he did vote McCarthy again in that last ballot. He voted McCarthy the
Duncan.
first two. So really, it's Matt Gaetz. There's
Dunn
just
of
no
Florida.
way Matt Gaetz is voting McCarthy ever, apparently. So that right there will be the number
Dunn
4.
of
We'll
Florida.
stick around for Bob Good and probably maybe
McCarthy.
Andy Harris just to see. That would be the
Edwards.
majority of the votes.
McCarthy.
To everybody watching on Rumble too, don't
Elsie.
forget to follow the channel
McCarthy.
itself.
Yes, go. Yeah, just click
Emmer.
on the Truth Hurts show, or I think there's a
McCarthy.
button there that says follow. Let's see
Escobar.
here. I can look
A
at
button
it.
that says follow.
Jeffries.
Yeah, it says subscribe.
SU.
Click on the subscribe.
Jeffries.
And feel free to share.
Espaillat.
And then also, let's go ahead and put down
Jeffries.
there the Twitter handle,
Estes.
which is
McCarthy.
action_liberty.
Evans.
I've been told it's hard to find, but that's the handle. You should
Jeffries.
be able to just go at action_liberty.
McCarthy. Fallon.
Groups like us, we're forced to find
McCarthy.
platforms that are
Finstrom.
pro-free speech, and that is hard. That is very
McCarthy.
hard to find.
Ferguson.
So that's why we're on Twitter now.
Typically,
We avoided that like the
McCarthy.
plague.
We're doing this show
Finstad.
2 times a week.
McCarthy.
Tuesdays, Thursdays at 1 p.m.
Fishbach.
CST.
That's right. We
McCarthy.
are planning to do these Tuesdays and Thursdays at 1
Fitzgerald.
p.m. Obviously, we
McCarthy.
decided to change that
Fitzpatrick.
already the first week because,
McCarthy.
we wanted to bring you live coverage. Generally, what we're going to do is we're always going to do this kind of stuff. We're going to expose these corrupt
Fletcher.
politicians, lying corporate media. We'll
McCarthy.
tell you what's going on at the Minnesota Capitol. We've kind of interjected that a
Fletcher.
little bit here during this
Jeffries.
coverage, but this is obviously
Flood.
historic. This hasn't happened to this extent
McCarthy.
since 1859, as we
Foster.
were saying, Bridge and I were talking
Jeffries.
about.
Cushy.
It's been 100 years since there's been
Jeffries.
multiple ballots for a speaker.
Fox.
So there's no living person on the
McCarthy.
planet that actually watched that go
Louis
down because there was no
Frankel.
TV back then.
Jeffries.
So you would actually had to have been old enough to be on the
C.
House
Scott
floor at that
Franklin.
point to watch it.
McCarthy.
I feel very strongly that is a correct
Frost.
statement to make, that there's no living person that's watched this
Jeffries.
go down before this.
Fry.
Now look at this. This is important. They're all sitting next to each
McCarthy.
other, right?
Fulcher.
Strength in numbers.
McCarthy.
Gates is obviously.
Gates.
So there's your fourth vote. So once again, and you can change a vote too, but I don't see that happening.
Gallagher.
At this point,
McCarthy.
Kevin McCarthy is
Gallego.
still not going to be the Speaker of the House on the 13th ballot.
Jeffries.
He's going to have to concede.
Garamendi.
I wish we could just do a
Jeffries.
show all day long.
Garbarino.
I think
McCarthy.
you guys will appreciate Action for Liberty, big
Mike
organization.
Garcia.
We've got to continue on with some of our other
McCarthy.
mission. Quite
Robert
frankly, we've done
Garcia.
like
Jeffries.
almost 9 hours of TV this
Garcia
week.
of
That's
Illinois.
crazy. Am I going to get fired for this,
Jeffries.
Bridget? I
I'm
don't
curious what's going on with the
Garcia,
Supreme Court thing,
Texas.
because somebody else commented on Facebook.
Jeffries.
Jeremy says this is just to delay what is really
Jimenez.
going to happen. We are waiting on the
McCarthy.
Supreme Court to make a decision.
Golden of Maine.
Is it about January 6th? stuff?
Jeffries.
I don't know.
Goldman
I have not
of New
heard
York.
any news about
Yeah,
the
I
Supreme
don't
Court.
know what they're
Jeffries.
talking about.
Gomez.
Jeremy, you ought to comment what it's all
Jeffries.
about, because we're all curious.
Tony Gonzalez.
So Good. They're showing Bob
McCarthy.
Good there, and I would imagine Good's going to stay firm.
Vicente Gonzalez. Jeffries. Good of Virginia.
Yep.
Jordan.
So even if they had,
Good
so
of
that's
Texas.
5, and why that's important
McCarthy.
is if the full strength was there, which it's not,
Gosar.
they would need 5
McCarthy.
people voting Jordan. They already have the
Dunheimer.
5.
Jeffries.
Once again, it just comes down to 5, maybe 4, depending on the
Granger.
strength. You just want to always see the Jordan
McCarthy.
vote, or whatever the other vote is,
Graves
be 5,
of Louisiana.
and it's 5. So
McCarthy. Graves of Missouri. McCarthy. Green of Tennessee.
We're going to stick around just for Harris, just to see if anyone slipped up, because after Harris, you got to wait all the way down to Rosendale. And we got to kind of move on with some of our other stuff. I assume Gosar is going to remain. God, this guy just won't shut up.
But
I guess Gosar's already gone.
What I'm amazed by is how, like, equal it is, Republicans and Democrats, in this portion of the government. It's like almost perfectly split.
Green of Georgia.
Well, you're saying number-wise?
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
McCarthy.
That's the essence of the November election, right? Republicans were supposed to have this big, massive red wave that never happened.
Jeffries. Grothman.
And why would it happen? I mean, what do the Republicans stand for these days? Most of these guys just want McCarthy, meaning they just want the status quo. The people hate what's going on in Congress.
McCarthy.
Andy Harris coming up here. Ooh, Clyde. One of his own is trying to get, it looks like he's going to stay the same vote here.
Harder of California. Jeffries.
They're putting the work on him.
Harris.
Oh, there they did get another vote.
None of these guys was happy about it though when they vote.
I know, and Clyde's standing next to him just like, look, I delivered that vote. He can't get it. There's still 5, so why did Andy Harris sell out there? I can't imagine he got some kind of deal. Once again, don't for a second underestimate the peer pressure that goes on out there. And the longer it drags on, the more that pressure mounts. I see it at the or at the Minnesota Capitol all the time. Before they break for the end of the session, they will get these guys doing the goofiest crap ever, because they're like, well, you don't want to come back for a special session, do you? They'll go into like the midnight hours and they'll do stupid stuff because it's past midnight and they want to go get some sleep and go eat. So, anyhow, McCarthy did gain another vote. It's a moot point here in the sense that they still have got to get a handful of others. I don't think Rosendale is going to cave on this one. So I think the non-McCarthy vote would be 6. We're going to stop coverage here unless you had one other thing you needed to read.
No,
there.
I don't think so.
I wanted to bring up, I looked up what the Supreme Court thing's all about. It looks like might be about South Carolina Constitution, including abortion rights. A decision might overturn the state's 6-week ban on abortion in South Carolina.
Interesting.
I would be surprised if that's what people are talking about in
the context here. I have no idea. Yeah. All right. Anyhow, I think it's a victory. I think it's a big victory for the Conservatives. I just want to know what that deal is. But I can't imagine that these guys changed to McCarthy without some kind of deal. So if they didn't get a deal, then this was almost a moot point. Although McCarthy's not the speaker. It just takes 5. It takes 5. So we better get a better deal of this thing. That's all I'm going to say. Otherwise, McCarthy is not going to be the speaker, or he's got to go reach over the aisle with the Democrats. And if he does that, he's exactly what these guys alleged he is. So this has been fascinating. It's at least entertaining, right? It's at the very minimum, people are caring about the U.S. Congress, because otherwise they were just going to swear in, and that was it. It was going to be the same old business. And apparently it's not the same old business. It's good to have a humbling experience in a leadership position. So McCarthy has definitely got to be humbled by this thing, and I bet he's now going to be. I don't know the person here. Maybe he's going to be very, what's the word I'm looking for? Vengeful. I don't know. Maybe he's going to be vengeful. So we'll see. Anyhow, we'll bring you all the latest news. We're not going to broadcast this weekend, FY. So if this goes into the weekend, I'm sorry we're not going to be here. You just have to watch on your own C-SPAN. But we really appreciate you tuning in to The Truth Hurts. This was a lot of TV, Dawson. Thank you very much for running the dials on every one of these. And it's good to have you back, Bridget. Thanks for sitting in the chair. And we really appreciate Erik Mortensen joining us today. And he's off to go do some ice fishing. So thank you, and we'll see you next Tuesday. Take care.